What's up, Chumbags? Welcome to the HQ. I'm your host, Kandula, and today I'm joined by Nick Sivak for a brand new season of the Respawn Station podcast. Nick, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing all right. I had a little bit of technical difficulties getting everything set up here. It's been a minute, Sri,
It has been a minute.
We got some rust to shake off, but other than that, pretty good.
A lot of people will probably be asking a lot of questions because, yes, this is a new season, but we're also on a new channel, a new format, a new look. And so before we dive into the kind of regular episode, I want to start by taking us back, Nick. I want to set the dial back to not 2024, not 2023, but 2021, when RespawnStation.com first began. That's right. During the COVID pandemic, a bunch of us nerds were like, hey, how do we talk about the things that we like to talk about, video games. And we created a place where we can essentially write to our heart's content. And if you read Nick and I review certain games, our hearts took a lot to be content. But in recent years, as you know, I will say that, over the years, as we've grown, as we've written, we've had the opportunity to work with some awesome developers and publishers, something that we're very grateful for. And then in last year, Nick and I thought, hey, we love writing about it, but we're big nerds. We also love talking about video games. So why don't we try to do a podcast? And so in March of 2024, so exactly a year ago, we sat down to do very much so the same thing that you're watching now. A long-form conversational podcast of people who just really like to talk about video games. And you know what? I'll say this, Nick. We did 36 straight weeks of episodes. And until November of 2024, when we both had to kind of step away for a little bit for personal reasons, mainly the fact that Nick and I just don't get along and our contracts ended. So, we had to renegotiate. But now, again, after a few months off, we're back. And we're really focusing on the podcast. And we're going to peel the curtain back for you guys a little bit because I think 2024 hit the website a little hard. I'm not going to entirely blame it on, the fact that there's an AI Google assistant that pretty much sums up anything you search without having the need to click into articles. I mean, look, we are an independent news media website, and we're already fighting, against like IGN and GameSpot for like the top result on Google. And AI comes in and you don't even have to click into any article now. You can it just gives you the summary. So any article leads where we were at the top don't bring in as many readers anymore. So we want to try this again, but this time with a much bigger audience. We're now on Chumbag TV. We've been acquired, and we're reaching a bigger audience than I think we've ever had before. And so we want to try to make sure we're getting you the best show possible. And there's a lot of changes that we've done since last season. First of all, Nick, we're not live. Anything we say,
that's correct,
we can cut out.
I can censor everything you say now, every swear word, every bad name you call me.
That's which I do, which I did often. And that's not to say that we're never having a live episode again, or we might, never check it out because, we'll kind of go through changes as we get more feedback from the community. But overall, it all boils down to this: two nerds who just want to sit down every week and talk about video games and nothing else. We don't want, we tried our best to have good vibes only. And so with that said, for those of you who are tuning in for the very first time, you might be wondering, hey, okay, we get it. You used to have a website and now you have a podcast. but like, what do you guys do? You talk about video games. What do you do? Well, first of all, I'd say we start off by saying in this episode, we're going to talk about the games we've been playing while we were off air, as well as the Game Awards and other kind of big stories that we might have missed along the way. But before that, we have to start by asking ourselves a very important question. Nick, what are you playing, my friend?
Yeah, been waiting to be asked that question for a little bit now.
Nick's just going around. Is someone going to ask me what I've been playing?
Just talking to the wall for the last couple months.
Yes. Yeah. All right, let's get into it. What's on your list?
So, the main things that I just kind of wrapped up playing recently are the Max Payne trilogy. I've had Max.
So for how long are those games combined? I'm like, or each of the games, I should say, because like I've never played any of them.
Max Payne 1, I think, took me like 7 hours or so. Max Payne 2 took me 5 hours, and Max Payne 3 was like 7 or 8 hours. So they're not
okay.
They're not super long. No. Funny story that I can start off with. I actually started and finished Max Payne 2 in the same day, which I can't even tell you the last time that I start and finished a game in the same day. I know you guys have like, we'll talk Twitch things where you've done that, but it's not something that I typically do. And I was like, I was just having fun with it. And then like I was on the last mission and I was like, this game's a lot shorter than I remember.
Nice.
But yeah.
But what do you think about Max Payne going back?
Yeah, I had 1 and 2 installed in 2023, surprisingly, because at that time it was before Alan Wake 2 came out, and I was kind of doing a Remedy kind of catch up, brushing up on all their games and some of the games that I had missed from them. But I just decided for whatever reason to not do Max Payne at that time. Maybe I was just ready to move on to some other stuff, but
sure.
They've just been sitting here on my hard drive ready to go. And then I was in the mood for a shooter. I was in the mood for something a bit retro. So I was like, you know what? Like maybe now's time to get Max Payne in. I can get refreshed up before the remake comes out in the next, couple years, whenever that's planning on releasing. So it just felt like
I think that's what I'm waiting for now at this point is that remake to come in so that I can, dive into the Max Payne series for the, that way. Though I will say I also had the same thought for Mass Effect, and I do own the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, and I have not touched it. So yeah,
it's
just an excuse.
Legendary Edition is something that I look at in my library, and it's like, do I want to replay those too? But yeah, those are a bit longer. Those definitely are a bit of a time commitment. But yeah, Max Payne. 100%. It's there's this old adage that good game design doesn't age. And I think that is very applicable to the first 2 Max Payne games. It's kind of funny because like the games have definitely aged from a technical perspective. Like I definitely had my friend Shane help me like mod these games so that way they actually run properly on PC and everything. Because like apparently like Max Payne 1, if you don't mod it, there's like a soft lock that just will lock you out of the game and everything. So there's some weird technical hiccups like that. I had to download a program to lock the frame rate to 60 FPS because that was what was causing the the soft locks and stuff. But all that aside, the actual gameplay of those games still holds up like so well. Yeah. It is such iconic, a fun shooter. Yeah, it revolutionized like bullet time in video games, clearly inspired by like the Matrix and stuff. But like no game was really doing that at the time, and even today it's still really
I was just about to say, like, how many games do you still see that really use slow motion kind of like Max Payne did? I mean, obviously you have some like indie kind of like, hey, this is inspired by Max Payne, but I'm talking about honestly, if I'm thinking big budget games, like AAA games, only real kind of slow motion that comes to mind, and feel free to correct me, is like Call of Duty open the door sequences, where like they're like breach and clear type of thing. Other than that, it's rare to really see slow-mo kind of make you feel that badass.
The other one that I would point out and like it's kind of a cop out, but it's Rockstar, like with the
Oh,
Deadeye and Red Dead and stuff, that's
yeah,
directly
that's
using
fair.
the tech that they developed for Max Payne 3, because Max Payne 3 was developed by Rockstar, not Remedy, like 1 and
Yes.
2.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's very funny looking at that game compared to the other ones, because you do just kind of see like the tech move forward into the future games and everything.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah. Would you say like the jump in fidelity from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 is larger? Like which has a larger gap?
2 to 3 for sure has a larger gap. One was released, let me get some quick dates here. It was definitely like early 2000s.
All right, I'm gonna guess 2002.
Max Payne. The first one was in 2001.
Dang it, I was gonna say 2001. Second
The
one was in 2004.
2003. So you're off on both of them.
Dang it.
uh
Okay.
Pretty quick.
2007 for Max Payne 3. No, 2011.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was
When-
later for that one. Max Payne 3
Don't be
release.
2010.
2012.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
So yeah, it's such a funny thing when you ask about like the visual fidelity thing, because Max Payne 1, it definitely looks like an old game. Like, you know, when you're holding like a shotgun, for instance, like the model of Max's hand is like off of the gun and everything.
Yeah.
So like there's
Yeah.
funny things like that, and obviously like, you know, Max's likeness is Sam Lake in the first
Sam
game.
Lake, yeah.
And then they
Mhm.
changed it for the later games, but like it's just like, you know, his face plastered on this like, you know, low poly
A
model.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then you just jump 2 years later to Max Payne 2, and I was texting my one buddy and I was like, honestly, like it was an original Xbox game, Max Payne 2. And
Oh, really? Oh, thanks.
yeah, and it honestly kind of passes for like an early era 360 game. Like I think the visual fidelity and like the details that they got in the models and everything is like a massive upgrade over the first game, and like it's like seriously impressive that it's on, you know, older hardware still. Still like a couple years out from 360 even launching, but you know, how much of that is, you know, PC version like being able to run everything maxed out, I'm not really sure, but
Yeah.
yeah, the
You
gameplay,
you gotta get the Xbox version and test it out.
yeah, the gameplay was just so much fun though. Like there's something so simple and satisfying about going into slow motion and just diving like around a corner and blasting away at like random mobsters and stuff like that. The story, obviously, like, you know, if you ask, you know, Max Payne diehard fans, like it's such a interesting tone. Like it has this like, you know, very noir, like mysterious, like kind of detective, gritty crime drama kind of feel, but then there's also like these really goofy like moments. Part of it's really accentuated by the graphic novel style cutscenes that they have in the game, where they have like, you know, real people like, you know, being photographed, kind of that Remedy thing where they have like, you know, actual people involved in like live action stuff, but back then they didn't have like live action video for it.
Yeah.
But like it has like all this like, you know, gritty and, you know, goofy kind of tone to everything. You'll be like walking down a hallway and there'll be some mobsters just like having like a goofy conversation about like, oh, I hope, you know, this guy doesn't come around the corner and just blast me away like one day. And then obviously, you know, it sets you up for, you know, a funny little moment here. But
I gotta say though, that's reminds me of like something I was thinking recently. I think more specifically with like Monolith having just been shut down. I kind of look back at some of the earlier Monolith games. You know, obviously everyone knows Mordor and everything, but before that, and it reminded me of like, you know, Monolith did this as well. This is why I thought of it, and it's that games used to have a lot more. At least I feel like of those like weird like conversations that they don't like necessarily expect everyone to listen to, but when you do, it's like what's going on? Like you know, it's like it just dialogue between NPCs that just feel like really weird, but they stick in your head really well. I
Mhm.
think the Arkham series also did that pretty well as well.
Yes, it's funny you mentioned that. There's a great clip that pops up on my timeline every now and then where I think it's from either Arkham Asylum or Arkham City, where Batman's like walking up on a guy and he's just like, I really hope that, Batman doesn't come up behind me. And then he walks in front of him and he's like, Bat! And then the video cuts out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that stuff is
100%.
great.
We need more of those. Go ahead.
So yeah, Max Payne 1 and 2, obviously I had a blast with them. They were a lot of fun, and they're very Remedy games, even early on in their kind of, development history, I guess.
Remedy has it in their DNA.
Yeah.
You can tell a Remedy game at this point.
Max Payne 3 is a very interesting thing to segue
Unpack.
into. Because like I mentioned before, that is developed by Rockstar, and tonally this game is completely different from the first two games. Like, it's
the Hawaiian shirt.
Hawaiian shirt and bald.
That's what all I can picture. Yeah. That bald. Oh, yeah. He's inspired. Yeah.
He like. It's so weird. So like, while the first games have, the very gritty noir, like, Max is narrating much of the adventure, right? He's like, I walked down the rain-slicked streets and I, had a gun held in my hand in the cold metal. Like, it's very much like that. And that kind of is in Max Payne 3, but it has the, like, I don't want to call it the GTA, like, dialogue, but it has, like, a weird GTA thing where, like, the characters, like basically the way that I described it to my friend was, I was like, Max in this game, it's like every 5 minutes he's like, alcohol makes the world go round like a whore on discount Tuesday. Like, it's like every single line of dialogue has something to do with like liquor, pills, or like random sex things. And it's like, it's taken so seriously in the game that it honestly kind of wraps around on itself and starts becoming funny again because of how like serious it is. And like, it's just so weird. It's like, Max is going to like, he's basically in this game, he is working as like a private security kind of guard for this rich family.
Oh, okay. Is that what I thought he was like on vacation or something. I don't know anything about it, but I just like Max Payne 3, I can like picture the cover of that game for the PS3 like just so clearly.
Yeah, like the first two games, it's about Max's kind of, well, the first game is kind of like a revenge against the mob thing, essentially.
That's what I thought. Okay.
The second game is kind of a love story and sort of like a way that
between him and alcohol, or just
between a character that's in Max Payne 1.
Okay.
And it kind of serves as like, without like spoiling too much, it kind of serves as a way for him to kind of have some like closure and resolution on the events that happened in the first game. Okay. 3, basically he's, having issues with substance abuse and is pulled into this private security gig because he's a guy that, can go on a killing spree, right. Like, and
you can get things
done. Yeah. And he's in like, the first two games are set in New York. This game is set in Brazil, I believe. Sao Paulo, I believe.
Oh! And shout out to Hurry Up Tomorrow. Sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, it's like you're in a completely different area. There are flashback missions that take place in New York. So like there's bits of like the original kind of aesthetic and everything in there mixed with this new, bald Max and Hawaiian shirt kind of thing. But yeah, just tonally, it's like very weird. But at the same time, the gameplay rocks in Max Payne 3. Like, they really did a good job.
It's got is it the same engine as the stuff that you said, like, for Rockstar? Like, is the Rockstar engine? Or whatever their engine?
Pretty much. Like, it has their kind of detailed character models. It's not an open world game. It is mission-based, like the original games. Right. So they kind of really crank up the amount of environmental detail because it's a pretty linear game. Like, there's not many side paths to go on or whatever. You're kind of just going down in a straight line.
So you got a lot more of those the debris and stuff kind of just breaking away.
Yeah, but what's really impressive is the bullet time stuff, because it's very precise. Like how Rockstar's kind of aiming is. I think people make fun of them sometimes where it's just a little white dot on the screen. Yeah. But because it's so precise, the game actually has a pretty nice difficulty to it, where like enemies can actually kill you pretty quickly, even on normal, because you're incentivized to go into bullet time and like, line up your shots and everything like that. But what ends up being pretty funny is that the physics on Max as he's jumping and like colliding into things are like pretty realistic. Like you can like dive into a wall and you'll see him start to twist his back so that his shoulder like hits the wall first and everything. You can like dive onto the ground and just like kind of lay there and like take your shots before getting back up. And just like, diving all over the place. It's just really fun. And like I said, the precision with it, there's a lot of different like unlockable weapons that you can pick up. And he has, like he'll be like holding a shotgun under his arm with a pistol, or you can like get like 2 like little SMGs and stuff. And it really kind of just shakes up the combat encounters and stuff in a fun way. But yeah, I don't want to go on too long with Max Payne. I
mean, you're talking about a whole trilogy of games, so makes sense.
They're very fun. They still hold up. They are really good action games. So
I will ask you I will end this discussion with the toughest question.
Sure.
What was the best Max Payne? What was like the definitive Max Payne title?
Honestly, I'm gonna say the first one. It's the whole kit and caboodle of what you want for that series. Max Payne 2 has interesting, they take the narrative in an interesting direction, and the visuals are definitely an improvement. But I think there's just something about that first game that it just nails so many aspects of it. And then it's like the third game, I could see them definitely using similar technology for the actual gameplay, because Rockstar is still publishing the remakes. So I believe they're being
sorry, so you said the first one, is that purely as like the whole package, or like is also the best narrative of the bunch?
I do think that. I think it's the best narrative. Okay. It's it's not like, it's hard for me to say. I was going to say it's not like it's high art, but it is in some ways, which is what makes that
Remedy doesn't make anything else, Nick.
Exactly. So like, yeah, I think it has, I'll say it this way. It has the most intriguing and I think the best payoffs for the narrative in the first one. The second one, it kind of, there's some interesting things there, but it's not as impactful as the first one. And then the third one, like the narrative is honestly the weakest part of the package in that one.
Dang.
But
sure.
The game's just over. Like I had a blast with them. I definitely think that they still stack up, and I honestly think it'd be funny because I know like I'm trying to get you into more Remedy stuff every couple months. Max Payne, I think like there's a good chance you will probably like that the most out of all of their games, especially if you're waiting for the remake. Like I think there's gonna be a lot of stuff in there if you play it that you're gonna be like, oh yeah, this is pretty fire.
Is there a timeline on when those remakes will come out? Or like a window of like a release window at all? Even
I don't think there's a release window currently. If we just want to do a little bit of napkin math, the Control came out in 2019, I believe, and Alan Wake 2 is 2023, so that would be about 4 years. The Max Payne remakes are in full development right now, full production.
2027? Is that what your prediction is?
Maybe 6, because
okay,
they are doing both games, and like I said, both games are like kind of, they're not the longest. So if they already have the tech kind of established from Alan Wake 2, and they already have some city assets made for parts of Alan Wake 2, so like they might have
Right.
already had a jump start on a lot of that stuff. So it depends on how drastically different the remake effort is compared to the original.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, just the idea of, because again, I'm that's the thing, right? Like, there's quite a few games that I might not have played, being as iconic as Max Payne, but they're so iconic that I know quite a bit about them just from being in the games industry at this point,
mhm.
and just kind of experiencing like the conversations around it. But I'm so curious if you have the visuals of like a Alan Wake 2 with the gameplay of Max Payne. I like that combo just sounds so deadly.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I'll
can't
definitely
wait
I'll
for
definitely
it.
check it out when those hopefully not 2027, but hopefully whenever they comes out.
Mhm.
They're definitely on my list.
So yeah, I've talked at length on Max Payne. What you take a turn here? What have you been playing?
Nick, well, we'll kind of talk about our hiatus a little bit later in this episode, but I'll just, it'll suffice to say that I did not play a lot during the hiatus. So pretty much November, December, and January, I was out of here. I wasn't tapped in.
Mhm.
Um, and so in February, I and now it's March. I knew I had to, get myself back into it, and kind of make up for lost time a little bit. And I'm happy to say that while I have not had a flawless record, I am making good strides. So, in recent memory, I'll start with the first game that I just recently finished, which I think is what you were kind of alluding to earlier. So on Sunday, it was 5, 6, 4, however many days ago, it doesn't matter. Time is a construct. Uh, I decided I was looking through my PlayStation Plus game catalog. Um, I'm someone who is very much so like, okay, if I'm paying for some sort of subscription, I like to at least make sure I'm using it,
Mhm.
as much as I can. And so I was looking through, and Nick, I don't know, are you a PlayStation Premium member?
I am not. I only have
Okay.
Essential for PlayStation.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave the podcast, actually. No, so I just recently upgraded because it was like I was on extra, because I am extra, and then it was like $8 to upgrade it to premium for the rest of my like subscription time. So I was like, you know what? Let's just. I've never had premium. Let's see what it has. And so I was looking through the catalog for premium, and one of the things that I was so confused about, right, is one, they have games that are what they call the classic catalog, and these are games like Resistance: Fall of Man on the PlayStation 3, which you can stream. So that's the only, like, you can open up your PlayStation 5, or PlayStation 4, I believe, as well. But you can just at any moment stream them, and as long as you have internet, good internet, um, you can play the games.
Mhm.
And that's actually, use that specific example because I did play an hour and a half or 2 hours of Resistance: Fall of Man just for the nostalgia trip and to see what this game streaming is like. It's bad, by the way. Um, just like, I don't know. I mean, it could be my internet as well, but I just find it like so shoddy that it kind of ruins the experience. Anyway, I digress.
Mhm.
I was looking through at other games that were available for this, and I came across a few games like uh, Pursuit Force. Shout out to anyone who remembers Pursuit Force. I played the crap out of that game on the PSP. Do you remember Pursuit Force? Have you ever
I
had
never
experience?
played it. I have like the cover art in my head, but
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
never played it.
It's so awesome, and one of the coolest things about that game, not to quickly digress, but again, if you're near the podcast, eh, we have a lot of digressions here. So one of the coolest things about Pursuit Force is that you can jump from car to car. Like, so you play as a cop that's trying to take down a bunch of bad guys. And so it starts off and you're in your car, and then it's just you hijacking people's cars, but jumping onto them, and then, like, taking them all down in the end. It's awesome. I'm sure I'll definitely get to that too. But it also has Resistance Retribution, which is the PSP version spin-off, or spinoff of the Resistance games, and it had Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings. Now, Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings was a PS2 game. It was originally started development for PS3, but then I think it was just they ended up when it came out, it was for PS2 mainly, as well as like the Wii. And actually, like we've mentioned it a few times. I think we grew up in in that right era where we used to go to GameStop and stuff like that. And so there's a lot of games, at least for me, Nick, where I can picture the cover art because I remember being a kid being like, "Oh, one day I'll get that game and I'll definitely play it." And so I can picture the cover art of the Wii version of the Staff of Kings. But here it was on the Classics catalog, but it's not a game that you can stream. You can download it on the PS5 natively, and so there's no streaming at all. So I was intrigued. I installed it, and so like I said, on Sunday, I booted it up to give it a go, and I started playing it. I was like, you know what? This is actually really fun. And so I kept playing it, and then 4.5 hours later, the game was finished. And so my thoughts overall is that I really liked it. Now, the surprising thing is, after I finished the game, I went online to kind of look up, like read about a little bit about the kind of history of the game. Was surprised at how negative the reception was when the game came out. I didn't realize it was a critically not panned, but it landed in the 5 to 6 out of 10 range, I think.
Gotcha.
And I think that's a little bit less than what I would give it, because there's a lot of its DNA that inherently feels like it's an Uncharted game, and so it has all the elements, and it's maybe at times a little too predictable, but that's kind of that's part of the adventure. I think it's, if you're a fan of Indiana Jones, and you just kind of want a new Indiana Jones adventure. I know there's no other Indiana Jones games to play, so I'd recommend checking out the Staff of Kings, because despite what the critics might have said, this critic thinks thought it's pretty good. And then, as Nick had also alluded to, that was not the only game that I played in one sitting. The other one, though, was an actual challenge where Alexa, Austin, and I pretty much said, "Hey, we're going live and we're starting this game at the same time, and we're going to race to see who can beat it first." And that was Raji, an Ancient Epic. This was one I had on my playlist for a while. Have you ever heard of Raji?
It's kind of like the Pursuit Force. Like, I know the cover art, but beyond that, I don't know anything about it.
So Raji has been on my list because it's an action game. I'd probably say, if for anyone who's trying to picture it, it's sort of like Prince of Persia in gameplay. And it's set in India, and it's based and steeped in Indian mythology. And that's why I was so intrigued, because it was, I wanted to see what exactly the game was about. And playing it, it's really cool, I have to say. As someone, obviously, as an Indian, and as a person who's rarely sees Indian characters, let alone Indian kind of like mythology and stuff like that in video games, it was really cool to see Raji in action. Unfortunately, I think that it does suffer from two big points that essentially boil down to controls that are a little weird. Like, they're not precise controls for the type of game it is. And so what ends up happening is that you'll jump and you won't land where you want, or you won't grab on to the area you want, or the moves don't work out. Stuff like that kind of make it a little bit frustrating at times. And I'm not going to say it's a Souls-like, but it definitely has challenging bosses and kind of enemy encounters. And so those moments can get a little frustrating. And then the other thing is, I think that while some of the voice acting is fine, some of it does not do the game service. And so, especially the main character, and again, if it could be a child that is delivering this dialogue, in which case I'm not trying to say anything mean. It just feels like the narration of the main character is just reading off of the paper. You know what I mean? And so it
It's not
doesn't
like
give
a
you
fun
any.
or camp way. It's just not
No,
not
it's
great. Okay,
well, even if it was trying to be camp, it wouldn't make sense because the rest of the game is so like serious and dire and like
gotcha.
it's yeah, it just tonally doesn't fit at all. And so those two things are the big detractors. But other than that, it's got all the style, it's got the gameplay for the storyline and everything else is really entertaining, and it clocks in around depending on how good of a gamer you are, a 5 to 6 hour range.
Not too
With
bad.
with a final boss that uh you know took some time, but I got it done. And so yeah, Raji, another one that I beat in one sitting, and I thoroughly enjoyed. Uh, then there's actually one other game, right? Oh, no, two. All right, all right. This is the last one I'll mention for now, and then I'll talk about the others later. So I also played Far Cry New Dawn, and as you guys may know, I'm a sucker for Far Cry games. Um, I've always loved Far Cry, and I also love Assassin's Creed, and so it essentially means that I'm getting a good paycheck from Ubisoft. As soon as they figure out their own expenses first, I think. But Far Cry New Dawn, a game that is a standalone DLC to Far Cry 5. And I had played Far Cry 5 entirely in co-op with Alexa, and so I decided, hey, we haven't done this in a while. Let's go into New Dawn. And the thing that I was really surprised by is, well, first of all, it's more Far Cry. It's exactly it's that, right?
That's a surprise.
Right. No. That's what's expected. The surprising part is how the game kind of balances against Far Cry 5. I don't want to get too like analytical of a Far Cry game, but Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon is very iconic, even not among non Far Cry fans, but especially among Far Cry fans because of how different it is from Far Cry 3, right? So Far Cry 3, it's I don't know if realistic is a word, but like it's grounded and it's
Yeah,
got this,
grounded.
and then Blood Dragon's like, let's throw it out the window. You're playing Rex, and there's neon explosions.
Rex
It's the
Power
future of the
Cult.
80s.
That name always sticks with me. I love it.
Yes, yeah, incredible name. And because of that, and like right away, Blood Dragon from the tutorial alone is like, oh, this is a different game. The sass that the tutorial gives you is like, it tells you right away, this is different. And New Dawn is not that. It's just as kind of like it sets up the crazy stuff because have you played Far Cry 5?
Yeah, a couple years ago. So I'm a little
So
foggy
no,
on it.
I'm not going to give you the yeah. So essentially, Far Cry 5 is the first game, I believe. I haven't played the first one, but it's the first game that I know of that is a Far Cry game that is set in America. It's set in Hope County, and it's this. It follows like this cult leader essentially called Joseph, and it's him kind of terrorizing this area of Midwest America, and kind of challenges the Midwest kind of classic American ideals and stuff. And at the end of the game, at the end of Far Cry 5, a nuke drops. And New Dawn picks up years after that. And so it's a post-apocalyptic game. And Nick, I'm not saying it's a Fallout game, but there are certainly Fallout tendencies in New Dawn. And what I find so interesting about New Dawn is what it means for the villain of Far Cry 5. It's not just a game that's saying, hey, return to this little playground and now with a little bit more pink flowers, which it definitely does that as well. But it brings back Joseph. I guess spoilers for Far Cry New Dawn, but it brings back Joseph. It puts him into a different position. And there is a moment at the sorry, I didn't mean to punch my mic. I'm just getting really worked up about Far Cry New Dawn. there's a moment at the end of Far Cry New Dawn where, oh man, I want to ruin this for so bad so I can talk about it, but I can't. Um, but that I like it's from Joseph. Joseph says it while carrying someone, and that moment hit me so hard. Of I really understood what the game was, and it's not just oh, hey, let's kill some time and make another DLC to sell some copies. It felt a lot more meaningful to me. I'm not saying I got emotional over it, but I really appreciated that they essentially revisited a villain and totally recontextualized that villain's journey. And so I think New Dawn is as much about the hero's journey, or sorry, the villain's journey, as it is about the hero's journey. So all that say, I really like New Dawn, and I think for 2025, it's my Far Cry kick has been satiated, and I couldn't be happier. It was a nice way to kind of meet my Far Cry metrics.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, go ahead.
I was just gonna say New Dawn was one that I had missed. 5 kind of like
burned you out.
Yeah, it was kind of my breaking point on Far Cry, because I had played 3, Blood Dragon, 4, and 5, and by the time it hit 5, like I was just kind of like, okay, like Joseph didn't really like land for me as much as the other ones. I didn't like the structure of the game really, where it was just kind of like go to the, from what I can remember, it was like go to the regions and then you get like assaulted by the bad guys and then it takes you to like a linear mission or whatever, and like just parts of the design just really didn't interest me that much.
Me neither. I think that's what I find so interesting is that like Joseph was, if you just look at 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, which are all the games that I've personally played in the Far Cry series. I think that 5, as a standalone, would have the weakest villain. Maybe 2. I don't remember the 2. I don't remember the villain for Far Cry 2, but he's not up there. He's not a boss. He's not. I don't even think he's like the El Presidente from Far Cry 6.
Mm-hmm.
But with what New Dawn does with his character and what it adds, I thought was really cool. And so that alone, I think, kind of added to that experience, and it made, I think, if anything, it enhances the experience of Far Cry 5 in a way that I don't think any of the other DLCs like that have done, or even standalone games like Far Cry Primal, if you want to throw that in there as well. So
that's cool. Like that definitely is a nice selling point for New Dawn.
And it's also not like I went back and I added up how long it took me to play through Far Cry 5, and it was like 27 hours or something like that. I think New Dawn is like 10, 11, maybe 13.
That's more 12, 13, digestible.
Yeah, so you can go in and out, and especially if you're playing co-op, it's a great time to kind of over a few days kind of spend with friends or friend, and and play through it. But the last game that I'm currently playing, this one I've not finished. This is actually like actively playing right now. Is look, Nick and I are very different in the games we play, but there's like this crossover, right? If there's Venn diagrams for both of us, there's a little area in between where it's like, oh, Nick and I will both go for a similar type of game every now and then to be like, oh, I got to get my kick of this game, and one of those is, oh, we got to get our kicks of a racing game. It's not often, but sometimes we're like, we're just in the mood for a racing game, or sometimes we're just in the mood for a Call of Duty game. So I'm currently in the mood for a racing game. So a few days ago, I installed Nick. Guess what? Unless you know for sure unless you've looked at my PlayStation account, guess what game? It's a Need for Speed game. So I'll narrow.
Oh, I did see.
Okay,
it was Need for Speed Heat, right?
Yes, NFS Heat. That's what I've been playing in Palm City, totally not Florida. And look, I love Need for Speed. I don't know what the general consensus on the 2015 Need for Speed is, but I enjoyed it. And then I also played another Need for Speed game since then too, and I'm blanking on which one it was. And then I purchased a copy of Payback because I knew I was like, oh, I'm gonna play that eventually. But Need for Speed Heat kind of jumped up on my list just because it was there. Like I could install it right away, and so I jumped in. A little bit disappointed, a little bit disappointed,
Ah.
because I think that there's really interesting aspects. Again, I'm not finished the game, so it's not my final impressions, but I'm at least like 5-6 hours in at this point, and I think the core concept is pretty cool because essentially the game has night and day times.
Hmm.
It's not dynamic, so it's not like if you just keep racing through the day, you get to night. Like you have to actively trigger night or day. And when you're in the day, you can do kind of regular street races and get money that you can use in your garage to upgrade your cars or buy new cars. But then at night, the police are on patrol, and it essentially becomes this. You're trying to get heat because heat is how bad the cops want you,
Hmm.
and the higher your heat, the more rep you get, and the more rep you get, the more you level up your rep, which then unlocks more stuff in your garage. So it's kind of this balance. You have to find, okay, I want to spend, if you want to upgrade your car, you want to get rep so you can get more items, but you will need the money, so you go for daytime first, do some of that stuff, then go to night. Do a few car chases,
Hmm.
get away from the cops and stuff like that. What I find a little bit the stuff that I'm not really loving is the cops suck. Okay, they are nope, no, not alike. Boo, boo. The cops are awful, and to the point where I was playing on normal difficulty, and I was so annoyed that I was like, all right, I'm just gonna. I wanted to have fun in this game. I just knocked the difficulty down just so I could kind of, you know,
Hmm.
have fun and like survive because these cops, it's not just the fact that they can keep up with you because they have fast cars. They just bully you off the road. Like they're just barraging you or barraging you. It's a barrage of attacks from both sides until
Hmm.
your car's broken. And once your car's broken, they can just bust you and you lose all the money and stuff that you got that night. So that was one. And then two, I don't know what the hell is going on. I don't know if the freaking servers are down. I tried for 20 minutes today to play the game and it would not let me onto the servers.
That's weird.
And
Is it an
yeah,
always
but then
online game?
it's not. So but the thing is, I could load in, right? I can play solo, but then, me, I'm a trophy hunter. Not as diehard as I used to be, but I'll still look at the trophy list and be like, oh, that's a stupidly easy trophy for me to do. I'll just knock that out so I can get a little ping and feel gratitude or satisfaction of some sort. And so I did this one where it's like, oh, tune your exhaust sound and then win a race. And
Hmm.
I tuned my exhaust sound and won a race, and the trophy didn't pop. And so I'm assuming that it's because I'm not connected to the servers, that it's not like being able to validate the fact that I
Sure.
did that. There's also another trophy that's in the last lap of a race, go from last place to first place. I did that too. I hung around on the back of the pack until the third lap, and then I darted toward the finish.
Hmm.
Didn't pop that trophy either. So yeah, that kind of sucked. And so all those things, it's got some jank. I don't think it controls extremely well either. Like there's other racing games where I feel like I enjoy the control of it more. Um, but that being said, there are some cool vistas in it, especially at night. When you're driving through the night, there's like you'll come off like a certain hill, or kind of winding down this mountain, and you can see the lights of the city in the background, and it's very cinematic that way. So stuff like that I enjoy, and the overall aesthetic is interesting. Um, but yeah, unfortunately, not huge on Need for Speed Heat. But
Not
stay
scratching
tuned.
the itch fully.
No, it's not very hot. It's Need for Speed cold, more like. But that's it. That's what I've been playing. Well, that, and I've been I don't even know how far I'm in, but Alexa, Austin, and I have been playing Ghost Recon Wildlands every weekend for the last like 3-4 weekends. So that's been really fun. Like just like it's like a really fun time, I have to say. But I did realize at a point that I was like, I'm playing like 2 Ubisoft games at the same time. Like I'm double fisting Ubisoft games at this point. Anyway, again, Ubisoft, send me the paycheck after you figured out how to run your stuff. So don't worry about it.
Wait till Assassin's Creed is out.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Assassin's Creed Shadows now just like 2 weeks away at this point. That's gonna be exciting.
Well, I got one more game, Sri, that I'll only touch on really quick.
Go ahead.
Speaking of phases, a
Okay.
little game got announced here the last couple days.
Oh, yes.
Called,
yes, it did.
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4. And as people may or may not know, I was quite the fan of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2.
1 and 2.
And the series in general. So just kind of, in anticipation of this remake coming out, I decided to throw in my copy of Pro Skater 3, my original copy, and did two full playthroughs of that in one day.
Wow.
So
what system?
It's for original Xbox, but I played on 360. But what's really funny, I think this is legitimately funny. So the 360
I better laugh.
backwards compatible games, they did not like test the games like they did for the Series X and the Xbox One, where like they went in and tweaked the games, made sure they run properly. So a lot of 360 backwards compatible games have a lot of like weird issues. And Pro Skater 3 is one of these games. You have to go into your Xbox's display settings and you have to set the console to 480p mode. If it's in anything higher than 480p mode, the game will freeze on the start screen.
Nice.
If it's in 480p mode, it runs perfectly fine. So that's just
can't have too much quality. Can't have too much resolution. Yeah.
No, Pro Skater 4, Underground, any of those other ones, you can run it in whatever resolution you want. But 3 has to be in 480p mode or else it freezes. So,
well.
But yeah, I just went through with a custom character, did all the goals, got all the stat points. And then because it's an old game, I used cheat codes and unlocked a bunch of the bonus skaters because there's so many fun ones in Pro Skater 3. You can skate as Darth Maul and Wolverine, which is crazy.
Oh, I mean, in the new one, you can play as Doomslayer or Doomslayer.
Yeah,
right?
which is also kind of a throwback because Doom Guy was an exclusive skater to the PC version of Pro Skater 3 back in the day.
Nice. Okay. That's cool, yeah.
But yeah, so I did another run through with Wolverine and got all the stats and did all the challenges. And man, there's just something about Tony Hawk. Like I just can't get enough of it sometimes. It's platforming. Like I guess you would just call it a platformer. Like at a certain point, you're going around levels, jumping around, sliding on things. It's all about movement, collecting different things.
Yeah.
And yeah, just the levels in Pro Skater 3, like it's one of the games that I'm not as familiar with as far as like this the series goes. I've only played through it one time other than this most recent playthrough. And I think a lot of the levels are pretty good in there, but there are a couple that like I'm not super hot on. Same with Pro Skater 4. Like there's some that really stick out in my head and that I like a lot, and some that I'm just kind of like meh on. So compared to 1 and 2, which has like a ton of iconic levels.
Are you not burning yourself out of the games before they come out? How far are they? Do the new ones have a release date?
July 11th.
They do. Okay.
Yeah, and obviously the trailer, like it looks really cool to me. Like it looks like it's just being built on the 1+2 engine, and like even like certain trick animations in the trailer are like 1-to-1. So I think the feel of the game is going to be, kept relatively the same from 1+2, even though it is a different developer. This time it's being developed by Iron Galaxy versus formerly Vicarious Visions. And like, you know, Tony Hawk games, they do not have a spotless track record. There's definitely games in there true. That are not good. And so I'm excited. I'm keeping an open mind about things. But ultimately, like, we're not really going to know how great this game is until we, you know, can actually play it. But one thing that I think,
get our hands on it.
Well, I'm just kind of like transitioning into talking about 3 and 4. One thing that I think is really interesting about this release is that they're actually developing new levels for this game that aren't, you know, they're wholly original levels. Some of the press materials say that there's 3 new levels. One of them is called Water Park, which is in the trailer, and there's like some B-roll footage out there. And then the back of the collector's edition box has an image for a map called Pinball. So we know 2 of those levels.
Interesting.
We don't know what the third one is as of now, but
now, I mean, speaking of the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4, or Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 7, as the mathematicians call it, is it so they're changing the way the story works? So instead of a career mode, typically you kind of have the 2-minute level timer.
That's for 4 specifically.
For 4 specifically, okay.
Tony Hawk 3 plays very similar to 1 and 2, where it has that 2-minute timer. You go into a level, there's 2 minutes on the top, you have a list of goals, like, you know, get this high score, get this pro score, you know, collect the skate letters, impress the skaters at the skate park, that sort of thing. 4 was not structured like that. 4 basically took away the 2-minute timer when you first load into the level. So it's more of like a bigger level, and then you can kind of free skate, and then you see NPCs around, you know, the level. You go talk to the NPC, they would have a little blurb be like, oh, you know, my cat's stuck up in the tree, go grind the log 15 times, that sort of thing. And then
get it down, scare the cat down. Yeah.
In that mission, you might have like a 2-minute timer. So like they would reintroduce it for, you know, specific objectives. But how, you know, it's officially been commented on now. Now they are turning 4 into like 1, 2, and 3, where there's going to be 2 minutes at the start and a list of goals to do, versus seemingly, you know, having more of like an open kind of design and, you know, talking to characters, which for me personally, this is something that has gotten the Tony Hawk community kind of very up in arms.
Sure.
And like, I'm not going to tell them that they shouldn't feel that way, obviously, because
but I will stop feeling that way.
There's language on the, you know, promotional materials and stuff that says like, you know, authentically remade, but like, if you're fundamentally changing how one of those games functions, like that causes like some issues.
It's definitely not like an optional thing. Like it's not like, oh, you can play it in career mode, or
not seemingly. Kind of, it seems like they are conforming it to the other games.
I think in our discussions going back and forth, I realized that Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 is the only Tony Hawk game that I've played. So that's the only thing I have memory of. But
yeah, like for me personally, I'm going into it with an open mind, because honestly, ever since there were rumors that, you know, a 3 and 4 game was in the works, I was like, if it just plays like 1 and 2 and it has the levels from 3 and 4, like that's literally all I want. And like, I've played 4, and like, you know, like I was kind of alluding to, like obviously I would prefer from a historical perspective, and if you're remaking a thing, I would prefer the original vision be kept intact. At the same time, I'm keeping an open mind, and it's like, I'm still probably gonna have fun with it, even if it has a 2-minute timer and just goals. Like, I'm still gonna be able to skate and do combos on these classic remade levels and everything. So
yeah,
I'm maybe more so on the spectrum of, you know, Tony Hawk fan, where it's like, I don't really care as long as we're getting it. Like, I'm happy because, you know, I just want more Tony Hawk games. But I definitely think there's a lot of uproar in the community right now.
Yeah, I certainly felt that. I think with the announcement, it was like a large crowd going like, "Yes, finally!" And then it's like, "But hold on, like, wait, let's wait. What does this mean?" The one thing that is obviously a byproduct of the fact that this is an Activision game, which kind of right, Activision,
Yep.
and then it obviously is under now the Xbox umbrella. Means that it's a day one Game Pass game. Of course, not while that statement still stands true. It's day one Game Pass for like the high subscription tier. It's not the base tier.
Hmm.
So it's either like Game Pass PC or Game Pass Ultimate. I think
Yeah.
are the only two ones that get it. But either way, it's included in Game Pass. And if you don't know, dear listener or viewer, you're watching or listening to this on an Xbox, so you can play it day one on whatever you're doing this on. Isn't
Hmm.
that crazy? We'll find out. Game streaming sucks. So um anyway, with that, we've moved beautifully, Nick, into the news segment. We've gone through the do you have anything else about Pro Skater 7 to talk about?
I'm really excited and I can't wait till July. I'm definitely gonna
Well,
be playing a lot of that game. So
well, speaking of playing, one game that you will probably not be playing a lot of is The Last of Us Part 3.
I
So
really want to
earlier,
hear your thoughts on this because I saw this
oh
earlier
yeah,
today and I was like, that's interesting.
yeah. So there was a few kind of little bit of information about. Um, well, there was a new controller for The Last of Us, which
The big
looked,
news.
yeah, that's what everyone's talking about. Which looked fine. I'm personally not a big fan of controllers that have like a lot of little patterns on it, or like essentially the controller is just a bunch of I iconographs that set in the Last of Us universe, kind of riddled all over the place. That didn't really capture my interest. But what did capture my interest is an interview with Neil Druckmann, game director, and I think president or vice president of Naughty Dog at this point.
Studio head,
Uh,
whatever word you want to
studio,
use.
yeah, yeah, he's up there. Head honcho. He is or the biggest target. You could also say that biggest target Naughty Dog. Um, he essentially said that he wouldn't bet on there being a Last of Us Part 3. And here's the thing: if you don't know, and I probably have to kind of start over, from fresh to reintroduce my gaming tastes to the podcast, because again, it is a reboot, and nothing that happened before counts. It's not canon events. Um, I love The Last of Us, and I love The Last of Us Part 2. I actually did a lot of coverage for Last of Us Part 2 for RespawnStation.com when it first came out, and probably under a different name at that point. But still, I've been deep into the weeds, and I think that it's honestly, I think it's fine. I think it's fine to move on. I'm obviously someone who's, a big nostalgia guy. Not necessarily like always like, oh, back in my day, but I've said so often that there should be a Resistance remake. And like Insomniac needs to remake, or some like Blue Point or someone can remake Resistance 1, 2, and 3, uh, just because I think they're really awesome games and I think more people should play them. And that's purely because I played it when I was younger and I enjoyed it. I remember enjoying it a lot. And there's moments of that I fondly remember. But when it comes to Last of Us, I think it's such an interesting case because Last of Us 1 ends, and it ends in such a strong note that I was like, oh, you, you can't really follow, you can't follow that up. It's just it's a piece of art that kind of sits individually, I think.
Mhm.
And then Last of Us 2 comes along, and it's like, okay, you thought you knew you thought you knew what was going on, but we're totally like, it almost bulldozes a lot of the notions that you have from the first game, be it, what character, what kind of character someone is, or like what the repercussions of actions that or events that happen in the first game. And I think that The Last of Us Part 2, despite its controversy, I'm a believer that I thought it delivered by and large the blows that it was trying to deliver. And it was one of those games that I finished and I just sat there like staring at the ceiling, going like, oh my god, what the hell was that? But I don't think we need to go back. And if at the very look, it's going to be such an interesting discussion. And Nick, you might not feel as strongly about The Last of Us as me, but I'd love to get your thoughts on it as well, because for me, I'm of two minds. One, I don't think we need another Last of Us game, similar to why how I felt at the end of The Last of Us Part 1. I'm like, okay, it's that story is done. We don't need to go back to it. Two, I'm also, the second game had such a shit show that I honestly do feel like that world has been tainted a little bit. And I think any game set, even if that live service game that was, canceled or whatever, even if that comes out, any game set in the Last of Us universe from Naughty Dog would be tainted by Last of Us Part 2's launch, that you can't escape. You cannot mix, remove the two from the discourse. But at the same time, the other half of my head is like, well, you're just gonna let a bunch of assholes bully you out of like telling an interesting story, or making it like, that's the conflict, the inner conflict that I've had since earlier today when I heard this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I saw this and I was like initially surprised, obviously, because like most of the time companies like this are like people like Neil wouldn't come out and just be like, yeah, we're probably not gonna do this thing anymore. They usually just don't say anything, so like they can keep it open if they want to in the future.
We'll never say no, but
what I find funny, and you'll probably find this funny, coming from me, but I know this is gonna sound like a crackpot thing, right? If random people just hear this, but it's I think weirdly enough that Naughty Dog is on a similar trajectory that Bethesda Game Studios finds themselves in, where Bethesda was for the longest time known as the Elder Scrolls and Fallout studio, and that's it. And I feel like that kind of sentiment was starting to be applied to Naughty Dog as well, where they're the Uncharted and The Last of Us studio. Then, as we'll get into later, in comes this trailer for Intergalactic, a space game that is separate from everything else that they've worked on, and trying to do something new. After spending the last decade on Last of Us stuff or Uncharted, like going back to the well on that. So I do see it from the creative point of view, where it's like we've spent so long with this stuff, and like not even to mention the TV show now also, where it's like they probably want to do something else, and that's Intergalactic, right? And so I think that like I understand the sentiment of being like, we're probably done with this. I do also think about the TV show though, and I'm like, we're obviously getting multiple seasons for part 2. And like I don't think there's any smoke and mirrors here. Like I think it is just going to be multiple seasons of part 2. Like there's I think most people
part
understand.
Part 2 is a lengthy game too. But
it's a lengthy game, and I think most people that have played it kind of understand naturally where those seasons are going to take place.
Yes,
and
absolutely. With like a fair degree of accuracy, I think.
Yeah. But like, there is the part of me in the back of the head where it's like, well, what if there is like one more season and they like, that's kind of how they address some of these like loose ends and stuff with part 2. Like maybe we get like an addendum or like a couple episode addendum to, that's after the ending of part 2. Like I could see maybe that being a way that they try, because the show is so kind of closely following the games. It's not like a Fallout where it's telling its own story. So like I could see,
except of the in moments where it does stray
exactly,
in kind of substantial ways, but yeah.
And I'm expecting more of that, honestly, with the future seasons with the show. So I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of like, maybe suggest some more conclusive narrative stuff like by the end of the show. But yeah, it's just kind of interesting. It wasn't something that I was expecting to read on the internet today. That's just like, yeah, we're probably done with Last of Us. Like,
yeah, I agree. But I also had, I think, well, I actually forgot about the TV show until you mentioned it, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess they could kind of wrap up things with the TV show. That would be such an interesting way to do it.
and I mean, Neil's like involved with the show, so it's like,
yeah. I think. Well, I'm really curious to see how, the season 2 lands of The Last of Us TV show, because I know people in outside of the gaming sphere that have watched and enjoy The Last of Us. And I've had people that are like, "Hey, what happens in the next game?" So like, try to get me to like tell them. I'm like, you don't want to know. Like, if anything, you just live in what you know right now for as long as you can, because once you know, it's you can't unknow. And I'm so curious to see how season 2 lands in terms of reception, if it will be similar at all, or just how it compares to the game launch. Because again, I'm really not joking. The like part 2 of The Last of Us is one of the most, I don't even know what word would fit it, like controversial, fucked up. I mean, like, I don't know what the way to describe it is, but it was just a crazy launch, with everything that feel like it could go wrong for that game went wrong prior to release. And the bed had been shit so badly by the time the game came out that it was like almost impossible to recover from. So
for sure,
yeah, it'll be interesting. But yeah, Last of Us, no, I'm fine with them stepping away from that series.
Yeah,
because I think I've gone through enough emotional turmoil, as is.
Yeah, that's a fair point too. Like, those games are definitely not like it's emotionally taxing to play those, and like, that's something that I do hope that maybe like intergalactic kind of like, we don't need to be like Uncharted levels of like, haha, I'm running around, let's go get treasure, but like something maybe not as dour as The Last of Us.
I agree. Yeah. Last few pieces of stuff here. Go ahead, Nick. I'll let you take the lead.
Yeah, this was just something else that I saw earlier today. RoboCop, the Rogue City game that came out. Was that 23 or 24?
Yep.
Apparently there's a follow-up game that's coming out this summer called RoboCop Rogue City Unfinished Business, which is a pretty cool title.
I'll say this, from the press release we got, this is what it says, Nick, about RoboCop Rogue City. Well, following the success of RoboCop Rogue City, which captivated over 1 million players, which as of now might be more people than Dragon Age Veilguard. Teon Studio, right? Teon Studio,
I believe,
calls the half man, half machine 100% cop back into action with an all-new standalone expansion called Unfinished Business. To reach the top of Omni Tower, now overrun by elite mercenaries, players will have access to new weapons, brutal finish moves, and special missions. These missions will take them through intense flashbacks, offering the chance to play as Alex Murphy for the first time in a video game. So the game, again, a standalone expansion, is available this summer. It's coming to PS5, Xbox Series XS, and PC.
Yeah, I watched the trailer before we started recording, and it's like RoboCop meets Judge Dredd. Like, it looks pretty cool.
I was just gonna say, like, the idea of like getting through the tower with just bad guys lined up. Yeah. So this was actually announced from Nate NACON's Connect 2025, and they had updates and kind of announcements about a lot of games. So just to quickly go through it. So the new games that they announced is Cthulhu: The Cosmic Abyss, which is from Big Bad Wolf, the studio behind the narrative games The Council and Vampire Masquerade Swansong. So this is an investigative adventure game inspired by obviously Lovecraft's universe. Then there's also The Mound, Omen of Cthulhu. This is from Ace Team, the studio behind Clash, Artifacts of Chaos, and Xenoclash series, which I've actually played Clash. And it is. Have you ever played Clash, Nick?
I don't think I have.
Dude, it's such a weird game. It's. I mean, the art style is really crazy. I can picture the main character, everything. It's just weird, and so I'm really curious to see how this one turns out. But this is The Mound is described as a first-person horror game with online co-op with up to 4 players, inspired once again by Lovecraft, this time by the novella The Mound. The game puts players in the shoes of a squad of conquistadors on an expedition to discover a legendary underground city rumored to hold priceless treasures. I really hope this one's not as, again, weird as Clash. I'm not that, I'm sure there's a lot, it has a fan base and people love it, but it's just so jarring of a game to play that I bounced back. I bounced off of that game real fast. Though I did return to it 2 times so I could try to get myself into it. I was like, I gotta force myself in. It just did not work. Then there's also Styx, Blades of Greed. So this is the infamous goblin Styx, which I forgot. Is the other game just called Styx?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I think so. STYX, right?
Yes, STYX. Yeah. So he's making his grand return in the third installment. So I didn't know there was a second one. But so this is developed again by Cyanide Studio, and Styx Blades of Greed is a blend of stealth action and strategy set in a vertically expansive medieval fantasy world. Staying true to its winning formula, the game offers open-ended environments and a vast range of powers and tools and multiple approaches to completing objectives. And the mission is to steal quartz, and that's it. That's the goal. Oh, I'll quickly say this because I probably should. Cthulhu: The Cosmic Abyss will be available in 2026, so next year, on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series XS, and PC. The Mound will be available in 2025 sometime. Again, PS5, Xbox Series XS, and PC. Styx will be available in fall 2025, PS5, Xbox Series XS, and PC. Now, for the speed enthusiasts, all right, we have Rensport. Rensport is the ultra-realistic racing game developed by competition company in Teon and essentially uses photogrammetry technology to make a officially licensed content and cross-platform compatibility, allowing sim racing enthusiasts to enjoy the game immersive experience together. Look, I'm not a racer. I didn't even know that the game was out, I guess, originally for PC. But now it's making its way sometime in 2025 to consoles, PS5, and Xbox Series XS.
Hey, oh my gosh! Just waiting for that GTA review, huh?
All right, there's a few more quickly that I'll go through because this NACON Connect was quite packed. We already talked about RoboCop. There's also Edge of Memories, which is fans of classic JRPGs and creators of the hit JRPG Edge of Eternity, which captivated over 1 million players. Midgar Studio invites gamers to return to the land of Hurion in Edge of Memories. This is a new French-developed action JRPG that'll be coming out fall 2025, PS5, Xbox Series XS, and PC. There's also The Occultist, which is described as a spine-chilling first-person horror game from Daedalic Entertainment and Daylore, launching in 2026 for PC and consoles. There's The Fading of Nicole Wilson, a story-driven folk horror adventure from Daedalic and 101 Games, releasing later this year for PC and consoles. Hell Is Us. This one's appeared a few times. You probably, if you stay on top of like the state of plays and stuff, you might have seen Hell Is Us. I feel like it's very, Kojima inspired. Has Kojima vibes.
Death Stranding with drones.
Yeah, essentially. Hell Is Us is available September 4th, 2025. It's coming out for PC, PS5, Xbox Series XS, and PC. 3 more games that they talked about. Dragonkin The Banished, a new hack and slash game developed by Eco Software, a small team of passionate genre enthusiasts, is now available in early access on PC via Steam. And the game lets players take on the role of one of 4 heroes to battle hordes of monsters and put an end to dragon domination. There's also Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown, which is an online racing game. They just said it, and they just launched season 3 they will launch season 3 on March 19th. If you like online racing games, it's a massive multiplayer online racing game. I have heard about that one before, so it's just kind of an update on a new season. And there's another game that I have also heard about called Raven's Watch. So nearly 2 years after its early access debut and now fully launched since September 2024, the co-op action roguelike Raven's Watch has captivated nearly 1 million players and continues to expand its content. So following the major Nightmares Unleashed update, which introduced new enemies and gameplay mechanics, Raven's Watch will soon welcome 2 new heroes with unique gameplay styles. And Nick, those 2 heroes, Romeo and Juliet. I can only imagine that you'll just drink a potion to die whenever you would like, but I'm not sure. You can find out by playing Raven's Watch, Romeo and Juliet DLC for free. Of course, you have to have the game, which is available now on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series XS, Nintendo Switch, and PC.
That's an inspired choice.
Yeah, and that's the Nacon Connect 2025 wrap-up. You guys got all the information.
Right on.
Now, Nick, it's time. We gotta talk about our favorite games of last year, what we've missed in the time that we've been off air. But before that, let's hear a quick word from our sponsor. And welcome back to the show. Nothing happened during that ad break. There's no change at all. And it's time, Nick, for us to talk about our favorite games of 2024. This is a conversation I think, I've been looking forward to all of last season, the one that didn't count. And we went off air right before we could do it. So this was the time as we jump back in. There's no better way to get back into the groove than to talk about our favorite games of 2024. But do you want to, I'll open it up to you. Do you want to jump right into that discussion, or do you want to first talk a little bit about maybe what we missed, during our hiatus?
Let's talk about our favorite games. That sounds like fun.
All right. Well, Nick, do you have a list of your favorite games? Now, I will clarify specifically, because I do have a list, that I did not only choose games that came out in 2024. I do have some that are from 2024, but by and large, I just kind of go off of games that I played in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have a few ideas or of games in your head already? And do you want to go back and forth, or how do you want to do this?
I just pulled up what
I played. We do no
on...
planning for this. We do no planning for this show. It's all live, even though it's not live. We're not live, but
it's pre-recorded now.
I'll do it live, Nick.
I just have my GG list up for what I played last year. So
we kind of go back and forth. So
sure.
If you want to take look through your list first and find one, I'll go first to give you some time. I'll actually start with my first game that I played in 2024. And I've not talked about this series at all so far this episode. So it's really refreshing for me to finally talk about Far Cry, guys. Far Cry 3. 2024, January was the first time I played Far Cry 3. and I really liked it. It's awesome, and it's look. I'm also independently, separated from the fact that it's in Far Cry. I'm also a fan of Skrillex, and so occasionally in my playlist, it'll like make it Bundem will come on, and I'll just immediately get a flashback to that field of weed in Far Cry 3 with a flamethrower where you're just burning through.
It's an iconic mission. Like
it
for
is.
how goofy it is, like that is like a Far Cry mission. Like
absolutely. Yeah. I think for me it lives up it's up there for me of like you know, I was gonna say certain Modern Warfare 2 moments, but I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't played Modern Warfare 2. The originals, I mean, the OGs.
mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah. So Far Cry 3, it was my first time playing it, and I had such a blast with it. It definitely ages a little bit. You can tell that it's not, especially if you've played the newer Far Cry games, 5 or 6, or New Dawn or something like that. It has some of that oldness. But despite that, the narrative is interesting. Obviously the villain is iconic. The fact that the game starts with essentially like a music like it starts with a music video montage to the song Paper Planes, and it's like a bunch of people just like living life, go on vacation, and then it pulls you out of that just happy-go-lucky reality to just the worst possible situation someone on vacation could be in. And then I also think it's a really cool hero's journey too. So Far Cry 3, one of my favorite games that I played last year.
I haven't played it in so long, and like so like for me it's just like snapshots. So it's like the weed field, it's getting the wingsuit and flying around doing that.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of the things that have seared themselves into my brain from that game.
What do you got on your list? What's the first game comes to mind?
The first thing that popped up looking at my list was Cyberpunk, because you and I were talking about playing those. Yeah, that was definitely like a big game early on in the year that I really kind of sucked my teeth into. And obviously playing it in 2024, I had Phantom Liberty with it. It's like I was able to upgrade to the PS5 version for free because I had the PS4 version and they botched the launch so bad that they were just like, hey, upgrade for free. So
yeah.
I got to definitely play a better version of it than when it originally came out. And, while I wouldn't say like, it's at the very top of my list of what I played last year, I definitely had like a fun time with it. It allowed me to kind of stretch those RPG kind of like, really get into the head of my character kind of games.
Yeah.
And it's like, while parts of it I don't think like ultimately like
land,
to put it as simply and succinctly as possible, like there's parts of it that don't really land for me, but overall like I had a fun time with it. Like it's not like a short game, and I went through and did like pretty much most of the quests that I could find, and I liked the visuals of Night City. I think outside of Night City it's just kind of like meh for the most part, but
well, it's just like dry, like desert land, you know, it's or like mostly just flat or personalityless.
And like there's parts of the narrative or like the tone that like it just kind of doesn't really like do much for me, but there are, at the same time there are also parts of the story that I liked a lot. I liked just kind of getting to the point with the skill trees and everything where you could really just like walk into a room and just be like, I'm gonna hack this guy over in the corner, I'm gonna shut down the cameras, and then I'm gonna blast these guys with my pistol. Like it definitely lets you kind of embody that like cool action hero RPG thing that I really like. And then also Phantom Liberty, some people like, maybe it's because I played it
which I haven't experienced. I played the base game, but I actually haven't played Phantom Liberty myself.
So many people talk about it as it's like it's insane, it's way better than the base game, and it's like maybe it's just because I was playing it at the same time that I played the base game, but like
Yeah.
it didn't really have that effect on me. There are parts of the narrative that I did enjoy and everything, obviously, and I think it's, you know, well acted, well written, that sort of
Idris
thing.
Elba, yeah.
But it like Phantom Liberty, because of how I played it, it just kind of, and how it's, you know, structured in the game, it just kind of felt like more of the game that I played. So
Yeah. I think Cyberpunk, we won't get into too deep into the review for Cyberpunk again, but it's, you know, for me, it's one of my favorite games of all time. I think it's earned that place over time. I don't think it's rare that I don't know how you feel about it. It's rare that I finish a game and I immediately go, oh, this is one of my favorite games of all time. It's happened a few times, but rarely do I do that. It's usually a game creeps its way onto the favorite games list after, like, you know, 3 weeks of finishing it, and I'm like, I can't get it out of my head. Like,
mhm.
it's there, you know. But what I find interesting about Cyberpunk is it's a it's a game that I loved so much, but I can't go back to it because it like I think that the first time I experienced it was such a nice package of, you know, I got this narrative that I wanted, and, you know, Nick and I, again, we'll bring up our Venn diagrams, very different kind of gaming tastes, but part of that middle overlap, you know, along with Call of Duty and Need for Speed, is also when we play certain RPGs like Cyberpunk or Starfield,
Mhm.
we play it specifically with our character in mind, not necessarily as like, oh, Nick Sivak playing it or Sri Kandula playing it.
Yeah.
And I think the character that kind of fruitioned in my Cyberpunk playthrough was like a surprise. I was like, oh, like this is a cool character, like you know, that I like enjoyed seeing the way that character developed and the ending that ultimately that character got. I found it was so satisfying for me that yeah, I just can't get myself to go back, even though it's such a cool playground to. I think Night City is a really cool playground to just mess around in, you know.
Cyberpunk, it's definitely the kind of thing where I'm gonna be looking forward to the eventual sequel. I think they learned
Sure.
a lot of lessons with the first game, and I think if they can avoid the pitfalls that the first game have, I think there's a very
By
strong
pitfall, you mean launch?
yes.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely some very strong foundations to build an even better version of what this game already is.
Yeah. All right, I'll do a quick one next. Here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. The next game on my list, I have to include at the very base level, you can maybe say it's an honorable mention if you'd like, but I have to include just a sheer volume of hours that I put into this game. I played this game so much. And depending on when you're watching or listening to this episode, there's a chance that you have no way to experience it for yourself. I am talking about X Defiant. Once
Ooh.
again, once again, Ubisoft.
An inspired
Just
choice.
an inspired choice. And this is a conversation Nick and I have had in the past about, okay, even if you're not in love with a game, if you've played enough of it, at what point do you just say, I have to put it on the list? And I think I've put enough hours into X Defiant to be like, oh, I have to just include it. I really think that Ubisoft pulled the plug on this way too fast, and I totally understand that because they were pretty transparent about the fact that, like, hey, this game was not bringing in enough players. It did not have a regular enough player base that was worth investing in long term. And so they're like, we'll just pull the plug, and we don't have to go through all that. And I totally get that, but I genuinely think that X Defiant was, if there was ever a game to really fill the niche for a Call of Duty replacement, that was it. It was free to play. It had boots on the ground gameplay. It was a little bit more character based, sort of like operator based, sort of like Black Ops 6, or no, sorry, Black Ops 4
Hmm.
or 5, one of those, 4. But I just had such a fun time with it, and I thought it was snappy. It definitely had some shortcomings in terms of the net code. Took a long time to fix. Like some of the classes and stuff, like the spider bot was broken for a long time, or just like there was one patch that they put out where the spider bot was just undefeatable. Like you just couldn't do anything about it. And so stuff like that was really kind of, frustrating, but it was an ebb and flow. And I think by and large, I had such a good time with it. I will forever fondly remember those maps. And there's luckily because I stream and everything. There's hours of me playing that game and just having a good time. So out of that alone, I have to include X Defiant on the list.
Nice. Speaking of things that we've mentioned, both of earlier in this episode, I played Roller Drome last year.
Oh yeah,
which was essentially Tony Hawk meets Max Payne. If I'm being as reductive as possible, I had a lot of fun with it. It's a very simple game. You just kind of go into these levels, you roll around, you do flips in slow motion and shoot bad guys and go off of jumps, and it was just a very solid gameplay loop that combined two seemingly different gameplay styles, but it really worked. And then it had like an interesting art style. It was all set in this like, future death game show kind of vibe. And yeah, it was just a really fun kind of game. And it was punctuated for me because I had played it, and then it was like a week after I'd finished it or something that it came out that like the studio was being shut down and everything, and I was like, oh come on, like I just played this, had such a blast, and I was like, man, if they do like another one, I'd be totally on board. And then it was just like met with pain right after.
And it wasn't max, I'll tell you that.
No, it was not a maximum amount of pain, even though it was a lot.
So I mean, I kind of said this about X Defiant, but depending on when you're watching or listening to this, you cannot play Roller Drome on PC because I believe about a month ago it was taken off of Steam along with Ollie World. And it's not to be too alarmed, but essentially the game, the rights have switched hands. So I don't know the nuances of it, but essentially 2K has sold the rights, and now it's under a different publisher, and that publisher has taken down the game so that they can put up the game again eventually under the new publishing license. So those two games are Ollie World, which is also skating, and Roller Drome are currently off of Steam. They're like, you can see the listing, but you just can't buy it or anything. It's not playable.
But whenever, if that does come back around, definitely give it a check if you like Max Payne or Tony Hawk, because it was definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah, 100%. That game is definitely as soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah, that's a Nick ass game.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Let's see. I'll go a little bit faster here. Okay. I'll do another. I have two more games that are not official 2024 games, so I'll say those first. The first one is one we had discussed last season kind of pretty extensively, and that was The Evil Within, because both Nick and I played it the same year. I mean, we'll a few weeks apart, I think. I really, really like The Evil Within. I think it's one of those games that really scratched the horror itch that I had in a way that I wasn't expecting it. And it, it's not a perfect horror game, but it's has such a strong identity, and it's very like kind of so much so it's quirky in its own way, and
for sure
I love it with those quirks, and I think that there are moments that it is genuinely intense and just like, oh my god, like I just want to get out of here. And I also think that part of it is the memory of it, and I'll briefly mention, because I don't want to reiterate everything I said about The Evil Within my review months ago at this point, but there's some of these games, it's not just the fact that, oh, it's a good game by itself. It's the memory of playing it. It's kind of everything, that the whole package. And for me, there's the the Evil Within. I started it on the hardest difficulty, and there was a moment where I was going through the first boss encounter, the guy with the chainsaw, the sadist, I believe his name is.
Hmm.
And I was getting so like it was so intense that at a point I just put my controller down and I just collapsed onto the floor. I was just like, "Fuck," and I just fell over. And at the time, I was living in an apartment, and I remember thinking, "Oh my god, it's 2 a.m." I was like, "No, I can't just collapse like that." But I was just sitting on the ground, staring, and I'm like, "Okay, I need to do this. I got to get out of here. I got to get past this area because I can't. There's no good save spot until I finish it." So pick myself back up, and moments like that of experiencing it, or like of moments of pure panic where I'm like, "Oh wait, he's behind me," and I'm just panicking.
Hmm.
Yeah, it made that game a very sweet journey. And again, I think probably also streaming it and kind of making a shared experience also helped as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah. Um, I got to bring up Astrobot. I know people are probably
I,
tired of
so
hearing people talk about Astrobot and how good it is, so I'll keep this one
yeah,
brief.
yeah.
But it was my favorite game last year.
Oh yeah.
It was designed with so much passion in it. I know a lot of people throw out the oh, it's just a corporate, nostalgia fest. Like, look at all these good things that Sony used to make, kind of thing. Um,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't really care. I thought that added to it, honestly, and like they did it in a way that it has heart,
Tasteful way.
and it's not just like a throwaway thing for a throwaway thing's sake. They actually put time and effort into making those cameos feel special. The gameplay is extremely solid. You have I would say it's pretty casual friendly. There are some parts of it that can get a little bit challenging, and then there's like specific challenge levels that are actually a bit harder. So you kind of have all your bases covered. If you're into platforming games, you can have the easy breezy path, and you can have the I want to restart this 20 times before I master it
Right.
kind of thing. And yeah, they're still adding content to the game even now. Like, I think as of recording this, a new level was just added today. In like
Oh,
in
dang.
a special galaxy. Like, every week they're putting out a new level. So yeah, we keep getting free levels, and overall it was just I probably smiled the most playing that game out of anything else in the entire year last year. So that has
Yeah.
to count
I
for
mean,
something.
it's absolutely. I mean, it's the the experience definitely counts. I haven't played Astrobot myself. I played Playroom, right? What are the one that comes
Hmm.
pre-packed with PS5, and I had an absolute blast. So I can only imagine that it's kind of that as a little bit more fleshed out.
Honestly,
Well,
like this game is like, you might not be able to imagine it or think it, but it's just like it's almost better in every way
every
than
way. Yeah,
Playroom. So
that's fair. I didn't know it was still being supported that actively. I thought it was kind of like a, hey, this is done. New kind of thing every, what'd you say, every week or
yeah,
every?
like it hasn't been every week since launch, but they added a couple speedrun levels like a month or so ago, and then now there's like similar types of levels that they've added that are coming out each week. And then they also
Cool.
had a Christmas themed level around the holidays, and that
Uh,
level was actually like fire. It was pretty fun, and it has a great unique song for it.
mm. Well, it's no Smite 2 because they're putting out like a new hero every week until August or something. So
Jeez.
maybe maybe Astrobot will catch up. But all right, next up, last game that's not in from 2024 that I'll talk about on my list. It's Warhammer 40K Dark Tide. I was not expecting for Dark Tide to leave a lasting impression on me, but it is, and I think this is one of those games where the atmosphere carries it so far. I mean, the gameplay's fine, the gameplay's smooth, but the atmosphere of Darktide, if you have not played Darktide and you're maybe even you haven't even experienced Warhammer to any degree, uh, Dark Tide it's one of those games where I can use the word and I mean it. It's dripping with atmosphere. It has incredible level design. I mean, it's rarely do I often, or not, I don't want to say rarely. It's rare that I stop in a game and stare this often. Like when I'm playing Dark Tide, I'm just constantly like, "What the hell am I looking at?" Just you go to these weird like hive cities or like seedy underbellies of kind of gigantic planet, and it's so nice to look at. It maybe gets a little repetitive in kind of gameplay if you just play it all the time, but if you're just jumping it every now and then, going in, having a little bit of experience, and coming back, it's the opposite of a breath of fresh air, like a breath of musky air. And the soundtrack by Jesper Kid is incredible. I mean, it is especially Volume 1. There are some bangers in there, like just absolutely incredible soundtracks that are, again, just really fit for the Warhammer aesthetic and atmosphere.
Mm.
And that's all I'll say about Dark Tide.
Well, I have another one here, which was Another Crab's Treasure.
Oh yeah, okay.
Really enjoyed Another Crab's Treasure. On the surface, some people might be thrown off by, a colorful underwater crab Souls-like.
Right. Yeah.
But it does feature many hallmarks of the Souls-like genre, and at the same time, it carves its own path. It folds a lot of like platforming elements into it that make it a lot of fun, and it actually tells a story that has some moments that hit, which is you can't say that for even From Software games. Like there are moments that hit, but it's like the narrative is definitely like in the background for most of their games. And there's moments from Another Crab's Treasure that I really liked, and just like the art style I think was just so well realized. A big part of like Dark Souls and those games is like it's this world in ruin and everything, and you might not get that sensation from looking at this game because it's so bright and colorful, like it looks like a SpongeBob game or something like that. But it's like, it has to do with like pollution, and your little hermit crab shells are like random bits of garbage and stuff that are at the bottom of the ocean. And there's these people that like get overtaken, and they're obsessed with Trash Day, where this giant mound of trash floats over and rains trash on everybody. And it's like, it has those moments that are, surprisingly impactful. And it was just a really fun game. It's maybe not like the most like polished game ever. Like there's definitely like some edges and some compromise because it's from a smaller team, but
yeah,
I think the good definitely outweighs the lesser amounts of the game. It was definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah, I remember you liking that one. I think there's 3 games that I would have guessed that you would have had on your list based on our conversations last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Astrobot was one of them. Another Crab's Treasure is one of them, and I have one more. I'm curious to see if it makes your list.
I would just want to say one more thing about Crab's Treasure.
Sure.
There's a part where you go into a city and there's like a fake CVS receipt that's used as the walkway, and there's a QR code on the receipt, and if you scan the QR code, it takes you to Coconut Mall, which is pretty funny.
Love the Easter eggs.
Yep.
I love like games should have more scannable QR codes. You know what I mean? Just littered around. I mean, I guess in Another Crab's Treasure, literally littered around, but I just mean like around the map. Let's see. I'll quickly throw out an honorable mention here, because this is a game that I think it was I had a fond memory of, or a fond experience of, but I don't think it maybe quite hit hard as I would like. That was Indica. This is in kind of an art house indie game. It was published by 11-Bit Studios, and it's a game full of allegories and very strong visuals. And again, it's got like the highs, and like the originality of experiencing that game was so fresh, but unfortunately I don't think it quite lands on every mark, and that's why I can't really officially put it on the list, so it gets an honorable mention. But that being said, a game that I think that did kind of live up to did land, I think, in most regards, is actually, it's a game that came out in 2024. I played in 2024, but it's specifically the version. It's an Xbox version that I played. It came out on PC a few years before, or sorry, not PC, PlayStation a few years prior. But that is Kena Bridge of Spirits, and this one is officially on the list as one of my favorites. Not an honorable mention because, man, Kena is on almost every level of what I would enjoy out of this kind of Souls-like, not brutal, but like enough of a challenge type of thing.
Mhm.
It looks like a freaking Pixar movie, and a very simple story. I think if you're someone who exclusively goes in for the story, you might be a little bit let down. But the world, I think, just looks absolutely gorgeous. The animation, like I said, looks awesome, and the combat is buttery smooth. I mean, again, I play on the Xbox Series X. I can only imagine it's just as smooth on PlayStation 5 and PC if you have a good rig. And the experience is probably I want to say like 15, 16 hours of a really fun adventure that maybe like 4 or 5 times, if I remember correctly. Again, my full thoughts are already are you can go back and listen to my full thoughts on it. But maybe 4 or 5 times I was like, oh, this is a challenge. This one's a little bit difficult. But obviously I made it through the bosses, and they were just enough of a challenge where I felt kind of satisfaction after beating them,
Mhm.
and yeah, that it didn't overstay its welcome. So yeah, Kena Bridge of Spirits, another one of my favorites of 2024.
Right on. How many
Can
more
I
do you
guess the
have,
one?
Sri?
I have 2 more.
Perfect. Alrighty. What were you gonna say? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Can I guess what one of them for you?
I'm guessing that you're gonna guess one of two. So go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna guess Spin Rhythm XD's on there.
That was one of them. Yeah.
Perfect.
Spin Rhythm XD. You and I both played this at the same time, and it was one of those games that just kind of consumed my life for a day or two.
Yeah.
I just like
Yeah.
it's this rhythm game. It's been out for a while, I guess. I guess it was a code for new content or something
Yeah.
around when we played
Yeah.
it. But you have this little like disc, and obviously, well, maybe not obviously, reboot, new channel, and everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
We gotta
do
talk to them like they're babies.
I do enjoy myself a rhythm game, and rhythm's in the
Mhm.
title here, so you're going to be dealing with some music, some colors, and some actions, and you have this little like wheel on the screen, and you kind of use your stick to move like a play field essentially to catch like falling notes, kind of like Guitar Hero, but
Yeah.
there's like these other things that like let you like flick it and it starts like spinning in a really satisfying way. You have like little hold
Yeah.
notes that you just kind of like move this disc around to capture. It's very satisfying. The music is, from what I remember, it's mostly like kind of like club music, kind of, would you say? It's like kind of like dubsteppy kind of stuff.
Yeah, electronic dubstep. Yeah, yeah.
um
I'd say that.
Maybe not my favorite genre, but honestly, like it fit the gameplay perfectly fine.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was just, I devoured that game. Like I remember like we were
he's not
talking
kidding.
about it. You were just like, yeah, you should give it a try. And then I was like, yeah, I finished it earlier.
Well, so here's the thing. I'm not a music rhythm player, and so I was playing through the tracks on easy, and or normal, one of those, easy or
Mhm.
normal. And I told Nick, 'cause I was like, oh, Nick actually plays rhythm games a little bit more actively than me. If you watch Recember, then you'll know he played like Guitar Hero, Van Halen, and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And so I was like, hey, Nick, you should check it out, just so when we're having the discussion, it's a little bit more like a noob talks about a rhythm game, and like a little bit more of an expert talks about a rhythm game. And we sit down for the episode, and Nick's like, yeah, I beat them all, baby. Like, they're all done. But I didn't notice because he had done it all on hard, And so,
I think I played on normal. I think I tried
oh,
some of them on
okay.
hard,
Okay.
but
So I did easy, and then Nick flew through them all on normal. So I'm
mhm.
going through, and for me, it's like, oh, easy. You haven't played this yet. Oh, okay. And then I go to normal, and I'm like, oh, I see. Nick's S ranked this one.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I definitely want to go back to it at some point. Like I think I remember telling you at the time it was like the best rhythm game I've played on a like traditional controller. That's not like, a
Yes, I
guitar
agree.
controller or a DJ turntable.
I mean,
Like
I played it on the Steam Deck, but I agree. It was like, just playing it with again those flicks are so weirdly satisfying to do, and just like seeing it,
mhm,
like seeing like it's both the animation and then like the doing it. It's almost like drifting in a racing game. It's like when you like have a
for
nice
sure.
drift in a racing game. It's like, oh, that's feels nice.
Mhm. Yeah, it was so much fun.
Now, my second to last game. And by the way, I did debate Spin Rhythm XD as well, but I just don't think I was quite as strongly moved by it. But second to last game. This is a game that I don't. If you asked me as soon as I beat it, if it would be on my list, I might have said no. But again, after kind of sitting with it and kind of going back to it, I do think it earned its spot, and it's Echo Generation. This is a game again that I believe it was already out, but then it had some updates as well. Um, and I don't even know how it's a turn-based action RPG. I just went dark because I'm trying to look up how to best describe this game for you guys. It's described, yeah, it's a turn-based action adventure game with a supernatural twist, and it's set in the town of Mapletown. Town of Mapletown. I don't know why I said it like that, but it's set in Mapletown, and it's this. I didn't even grow up in what, like, 90s America, but it feels like it gives you such a unique, almost. How do I say this? It's like if a Steven Spielberg 90s like adventure movie was turned into a voxel art style turn-based combat game. It's essentially you playing as this kid who can have a party of his little sister and a few other kind of random third chairs that range from a dog to a like a robot. And the adventure is again just as crazy as like a Steven Spielberg 90s summer action blockbuster or summer adventure blockbuster. It go just as many twists and kind of over the top stuff, surprises, but the tone and vibe of the game is just so awesome, that it's one of those where I think the vibe of the game stays with you, and the tone of the game stays with you so long that I just ended up really loving it, and I look back on it very fondly. And again, just gorgeous art style, especially again. I think they redid some of the visuals from the original release, or I don't know exactly how it works. Again, it's been a bit big, but I specifically played the Echo Generation Midnight Edition, not just Echo Generation, because again, that's the original. Um, and yeah, Midnight Edition just it comes with all these upgrades and as well as like uh, quality of life improvements that make the whole experience, I think, the ideal way to experience it. So Echo Generation, if you're looking for a nice indie game to kind of just really get lost in.
Nice. I'll throw out an honorable mention before my last one. It
Go for it.
was Sayonara Wild Hearts. I had
Oh,
always
okay.
heard that this game was, really good, and it's also kind of rhythm adjacent, which is what made me think of it after just talking about Spin Rhythm. And
Yeah.
yeah, just a fairly like it's pretty short. Like I remember finishing it in one night. I guess maybe that was the last time I finished the game in one night. It was only
Yeah.
like an hour and a half maybe that it takes to finish
Oh,
that
okay.
game. But yeah, just trippy visuals, interesting kind of temple run esque gameplay, I would say. But with rhythm and the soundtrack is really great in it. So really enjoyed that one. My last real one though that I would probably bring up is Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree.
I was all I could yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Nick. DLCs are not qualified for this discussion. Sorry.
Right. Um The reason that I
Go ahead.
probably save this,
Talk about Shadow of the Nerd Tree, please.
the reason that I would probably put this last, like honestly, like you know,
Would you say your last is like the best, or last is like the least
last in this
compelling?
situation is like, I guess I'll talk about it.
Oh, okay. So you've gotten like your biggest game's already out. Like you've already not talked about your top of the top.
Yeah, that would probably go to
Okay.
Astrobot.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. I could assume that. Yeah.
But
Sure.
yeah,
Okay.
Shadow of the Erd Tree, like I'm a From Software fan. I do like their games, and I liked Elden Ring a lot. The reason why I'm just kind of like giving Erd Tree lip service is that like it's weird because it's like in the moment it's like hell yeah, this is peak FromSoft, right? Like you look around every corner and it's like the coolest fantasy visuals you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah.
And the bosses that you fight are like the coolest enemies that you ever like come across and everything.
Yeah.
So like they're just like firing on all cylinders, and it's a high quality expansion to an already high quality game. At the end of the day though, like it does just kind of feel like more Elden Ring. Like it does interesting
Sure.
things that the base game doesn't do, but at the same time it feels completely attached to Elden Ring. It's kind of like the same way that I feel about Phantom Liberty now thinking about it. It's like it just kind of feels like a natural bolted on expansion to the base game. It adds a ton of content. It's it's really interesting to explore the new like world space and everything. But the final boss I really didn't like, both in what it ended up being and the weird kind of difficulty balance that it had compared to other bosses. And yeah, at the end of the day, like a couple months removed from it, I'm just like, yeah, like it was fun. I had fun with it, but like, am I ever really going to go back and be like, man, I really want to play Shadow of the Erd Tree right now? It's like, I don't know if I'm gonna do that. Like,
fair.
I'm excited. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, do you think that you'd feel kind of this same way about the Night Rain? Like, because it looks, I mean, it's a standalone expansion, I believe, right? The Night
It's
Rain,
a standalone game. It's not. They're not.
Oh, it's a full-on standalone game.
Yeah, they're not marketing it as a DLC like Erd Tree was. I was gonna bring up Night Rain actually, and I'm interested in Night Rain from a perspective of like I like roguelike games, and this being like a roguelike, FromSoft kind of game, there are elements of that I think are interesting. At the same time, like I'm not expecting it to hit the same high as Elden Ring. I'm not expecting it to even, be like a top FromSoft game like going into it. So I think my expectations are in check, but I think it's just kind of a fun experiment that I think that they're doing, where it's just like, yeah, we just had this idea. We're gonna, reuse old assets.
Is that a day one for you? You're gonna jump in Night Rain?
Maybe. I haven't fully decided yet. I think I'm waiting for reviews, honestly, before I hop into it.
I think I do plan on jumping in, and and Nick, if you want to join me and be my tour guide through.
Nice.
What's Elden Ring's world? Is there a world name?
The Lands Between. That's it.
The Lands Between. Yeah. So, well, yeah, we'll make that happen. I'm sure we'll talk about it here on the podcast because, ladies and gentlemen, we are a weekly podcast and we will stick to it for at least 36 weeks.
Yeah.
Because we've proven that.
For a couple months, we're good for that, and then we go on a 4-month break. 5-month break.
Some real life garbage comes up, and you gotta go deal with it.
Yep.
Now, my last game is actually the top. We had inverse curves, so I saved the best for last. This is the game that I look back and I'm like, yeah, this is this one the year for me, and I think it's a culmination of everything I've talked about regarding every other game, right? It's both the perfect timing. It's like it came out when I was in the right mood and right headspace for this type of game. And I think that I had just enough time to get hyped for it. And then the actual, like when it arrived, I was just, everything that I was expecting was met. and then a little bit more in certain areas. And I am, of course, talking about, would you believe it, the second Warhammer 40K game on this list, and that is Space Marine 2. So last year, we did the, for now, short-lived retrograde show where we played through the first Space Marine in preparation for Space Marine 2. And so I had prep done for Space Marine 2. I knew what was kind of the storyline going in. I knew kind of what to expect. I also had these. It was enough time for, again, like I said, for me to get hyped, because it was the developer of World War Z, another game that I quite enjoyed, and seeing that tech being used again with just how much enemies and stuff that they can get on the screen. I thought it was, like there was no way that game could go wrong in my head. And then it came out, and I was so nervous. Because I was like, oh, I've thought about that before. I was like, oh, there's no way this game could go wrong. And then, like, Black Ops 4 doesn't have a fucking campaign. So, like, anything can happen. And so Space Marine 2 has, in my opinion, some of the highest highs of, like, a nerd fantasy. There's some, and it's undoubtedly, I'm not going to say it's for everyone. It's undoubtedly a Warhammer thing. And I'm not even a Warhammer buff. Like, my experience is, I played Space Marine 1. I played Dark Tide. I played Bolt Gun, which I didn't even know when I first played Bolt Gun that it essentially is in the, it follows the events of Space Marine 1. I had no idea. And yeah, there's certain moments and also I streamed Space Marine 2, and it's one of the things where I love the fact that I can go back and not just, like, experience the game again, because I could just play it again, but I can experience myself experiencing it for the first time. And there are certain moments I've genuinely gone back to and watched. One of them is, like, there's this incredibly badass line at the end of the game where there's I don't even know what, like, a dreadnought or whatever it is, like, blast through the wall, and Titus is like, help me, brother. And he was like, lead me to the slaughter. And then he just starts moving. It's so fucking badass. And so, yeah, that Space Marine 2, it's maybe not quite as atmospheric as Dark Tide is, because Dark Side, maybe you get the seedy underbelly, whereas Space Marine 2 kind of gives you a little bit more of the overworld. But it is beautiful, it is chaotic, and it delivers some surprisingly nice twists along the way.
Space Marine 2 it delivers the demon slaughtering power fantasy that, like, the modern Doom games give you, for sure.
Yeah, 100. Yeah, for sure. I agree. So that's our list. That's do you have anything else? Did anything else strike your
Nah, there's other things I could give, like, honorable mentions and stuff too, but for the most part, I picked out my top ones.
Me too. So those are our favorite games of 2024. And again, you can hear most of our thoughts on, or you can hear our thoughts on most of those games already, because we've talked about them for in some cases quite in depth. I mean, like, we haven't talked about maybe what was it, 3 episodes where we talked about Shadow of the Erd Tree, because it was like preparation for Shadow of Erd Tree, and then, like, the playing and first impressions, and then there's like, let's talk about the final thing. So yeah, we've talked extensively about some of these games, so you can definitely go back and listen to our thoughts on that over on Respawn Station TV or respawnstation.com, of course, or watch.respawnstation.com. There's a lot of ways there's a lot of places you guys can go to hear our thoughts on the games that we mentioned, which is also nice, because then, we're talking about all these games, and now there's an easy way you can hear us kind of rant, or maybe and just hype up some of these games. All right, now, Nick, for the final segment of the show, let's quickly go through some of the things that we missed, because again, we've been off air November, a little bit of November, all of December, all of January, all of February. And so I think, we don't have to go into all the headlines, but the big thing we missed was the Game Awards, which I actually, thankfully, I did not get most of that show spoiled for me. So yesterday, I went through and I watched the entire show for the first time. The 10-year anniversary special. And I gotta say, Jeff put on a really good show. It was a genuinely engaging and entertaining show.
Definitely one of the best ones. Like,
yeah, I was really surprised. I mean, like you had mentioned it, which is part of the reason why I went. Like I was like, okay, let me actually go and definitely sit down and watch through it all. But yeah, there was some really cool announcements. I thought that the the Witcher 4 teaser was really cool. The cinematic, even though it definitely gave me the vibes of that, like, you know, that Cyberpunk 2077 like animation of that girl with the arm that comes out, you know, that very first kind of one. I'm like, this.
I'm looking at a game that's going to come out in 2030.
Yeah, right. Like, yeah, exactly. And let's see, or any kind of specific highlights that you had from the show that you wanted to mention?
For trailers, I
or
really,
just, you know, anything with the Game Awards, because that was the big thing we missed.
Yeah, Outer Worlds 2. I loved getting a new trailer for that, and obviously, if you're gonna put a Fallout New Vegas joke in that trailer, like, you're gonna get me on board. So
yeah, I really like the way that it was like, you know, from the developers of you know, Fallout 3, 2.
Yeah. Yeah. That game looked awesome. This was the official reveal of Borderlands 4, and I was kind of underwhelmed by it. I don't know how you felt.
I got it. Look, here's the thing. I was like, I'm not Austin, right? I'm not a fucking loser. So I don't know what like Borderlands is typically like. I thought I am so underwhelmed by Borderlands 4 on almost every account. Like every time I've looked at it, I'm like, that's okay. That's Borderlands, and that's, you know.
Yeah, it's like the gameplay looks good, but like, I don't know, 3 just kind of rubbed me the wrong way with the narrative and everything, and it just kind of looks like another version of 3, if I'm being honest. So,
well, for me, as you know, I've played probably 7 hours of Borderlands 1, 2 hours of Borderlands 2, and none of Borderlands 3. And so whenever these kind of games, like, like a new one comes out, my goal is, I can get hype about it. You know, this gives me a reason to go back and play through the games that I haven't had the chance to. I'm nowhere near compelled at the moment. And that's not to say the game looks bad. It just doesn't look like, nothing is like, I have to play this. You know, I have to pick this up and play it. Excuse me. I just started choking because I was just that compelled not to play it. And more specifically, I think that I don't know how to feel about this art style, because it's not Borderlands, but it's also like it's like this realistic thing. But then it's more realistic than a regular Borderlands game, but it still just it feels like it adds the little kind of filter added on to be like, it's still Borderlands though, because it has the lines on the edges. So yeah, Borderlands 4 didn't quite strike me very well. But one thing that did, Mafia: The Old Country.
I was just about to ask you what you thought.
Mafia looks great. I've now officially played through all the Mafia games. And you know, since we're mentioning beating games in one sitting, I did play through Mafia 1 Definitive Edition in one sitting, also for a stream, which took 9 hours, by the way. So a hefty one, but I'm so excited for.
It was a good trailer.
Yeah,
you know, it's such a tiny thing, and honestly, like, it doesn't actually weigh that heavily on me. But there's just something about the character models from 1 Definitive Edition, and I also see it in this trailer, where it's like some of the facial like animations just look weird to me. Like they look maybe a little uncanny valley, but then like in other shots they look incredible. So
yeah, right, yeah.
That's like the one thing that kind of like stuck out to me as being like, it looks a little weird in spots, but I love the new setting that they're going with. I love how it's kind of like, you know, not like origin story of the mob, but like
you get a little bit of that in the second one, where like you see a little bit of the old country, I think, right? Because there's flashbacks to that in one of the games, 1 or 2, definitely not 3.
In 2, in the beginning, it's in like World War II.
Right,
yeah.
exactly, yeah. So it gives me those vibes, and I think I'm just hoping that there's some Playboy magazines for me to collect. That's all. That's all I'm hoping for. But
Seeing as it's
we'll
around
see.
the early 1900s, it'll be like Red Dead, where there'll be like cigarette cards and
Drawing.
stuff.
Yeah. Oh, sure. I was gonna say like Titanic style like drawings of boobies. I don't know, something like that. Uh, okay. So one game that surprised me because I was like, wait, it's called Black Frost, which it shows the title card of Black Frost, and then it's like, oh, by the way, this is The Long Dark 2. Uh, cool reveal, but just a vibe. Like Black Frost looks really nice, and so it's stylized, but I thought the style was really cool. What'd you think about the first Berserker Kazan?
There's people that have been, hyping it up and stuff. To me, it isn't really hitting. It's, from what I remember, it looks kind of Soulsy, kind of anime from what I remember. And like, it's, I don't think it looks bad. I know people are, kind of talking up the gameplay and stuff, but to me, there's just like something about it that's not really scratching my brain in any good way.
Sure. And I have some of my highlights. I can mention that because I literally just watched it. But do you have ones that you want to, or do you want me to just keep going?
We're just kind of hitting on them. You can list off yours, and I'll bounce off of those.
Okay. Okay. So one game that I did not expect at all, and I thought it would just like immediately shot up on my list of anticipated games. It's Thick as Thieves, which is the PvE game that's set in 1910s Metropolis.
That's the Warren Spector one, right?
Yes, yeah. Man, I thought this was so cool. And I love the way that that teaser. I know it's mostly CGI, but I the way it introduced the characters, and then I love the shot of it, like the final shot of like. They're on the rooftop and they're jumping toward the the egg thing, and then it's a freeze frame. I thought that was awesome. And then even before that, where like where the way it says like, hey, it's an immersive sim, set from from Warren Spector, and it's all the elements are in the world. Like the words are kind of like flashing across the screen or moving. Like I thought that was the style of that game was just perfect for me.
Yeah, I have my eye on that one. I definitely want to see like some actual gameplay and see how that kind of shakes out, but like definitely like you were saying,
Dishonored.
like vibe and like tone wise, I really like that.
Yeah, I'm picking up tones of Dishonored, so if it's anything like that, then I'll be satisfied. Split Fiction, I'm not gonna spend too much time on it because I think we both have this game incoming, and so hopefully we'll be able to talk about our actual impressions about it soon.
Joseph Ferris ain't missing. That team at Hazelight's
Dude,
firing.
Honestly, it's really impressive, and I'm hoping the reviews are good. But again, I'll make my own mind once I get my hands on it. I'm waiting for Amazon to deliver the freaking package.
It's kind of funny because like people rightfully dog on EA and everything, but it's like you got EA's got Respawn and they got Hazelight, and it's. Like, those are like solely lifting up EA's stock. I feel.
Did you hear about it was just earlier today. The Respawn game got canceled. It was
which one?
An unannounced. It was an unannounced new first person shooter from Respawn, and literally earlier today. It was like I think it was maybe an hour before we hit the studio.
No, I didn't see that. I don't know. That sucks though. I like Respawn's games.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too.
I think maybe they were spread a little bit too thin because they had a lot of projects that were in early stages. Because it was like a year or two ago, it came out that they canceled a Star Wars first-person shooter also. So on top of doing the Jedi games and having to help out on Battlefield and stuff, I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Some other highlights. Den of Wolves looks cool. I put that one down mainly for you because it feels like it's maybe your Payday itch.
It's from Payday alums for sure. I'm interested in it from a gameplay perspective. The setting again, like it's a cyberpunky kind of like. F the man kind of vibe, and it's just like okay, it doesn't do much to me. But yeah, from a gameplay perspective though, if they kind of like, you know, take what they wanted to do with Payday, for instance, and kind of elevate that, like, I mean, I'm interested in heist genre games, so.
Mm-hmm. Next one is let's see here. Oh, so here's all right. Look, XDefiant is going to the wind, right? Going to the dogs, and so I'm glad Fragpunk is coming along as a new PvP first-person shooter that I can get into for a few months before, hopefully, you know, it doesn't, but it might just go off of air again. So yeah, I'm glad I'm getting a steady rotation of new first-person shooters to just waste my time with. So
Yeah.
I'm curious about Fragpunk though. It looks interesting.
Yeah, I like
And I hope, you know,
the
well.
whole like kind of card system that they have going where it like modifies the rounds and stuff. I think that's interesting, but like every time I look at it, it's just like, okay, how much can you get out of this concept?
Yeah.
We'll see, I guess.
A quick mention. I'm not even like a big Tekken guy, but you know, so Final Fantasy 16, right? Yeah, 16. It stars Clive Rosenfield. I think. Fuck. And so here's the thing. I have played probably 15, 16 hours of Final Fantasy 16, and I loved it. It actually came out on my birthday, so it was like a game that I started playing on my birthday, and immediately I was like, "This is crazy!" Like I've never played a Final Fantasy game, and it was so crazy. And then a month after it, because I was playing it in small chunks, I got into a little bit of an accident, and I tore my ACL, and I fell off. Like I couldn't finish the game. I didn't have my PS5 on me, and long story short, I never went back to that game. But as soon as that, like I was watching the Game Awards, and to see like, you know, the dun dun dun, I was like, oh my god, this is Final Fantasy. Like it was like immediately started triggering memories for me. And so while Tekken 8 might not be like my bread and butter, that was a cool little fight sequence. And also the way that the fucking icon, which for those of you who are uninitiated, that's the cool badass monsters in the background, just grabs the dude. Like that's death. That's how you die. That's how, you know, Godzilla fucking grapples you. That's what happens. You're dead. Splitgate 2. Actually, I think earlier this week they had a open playtest or whatever. I unfortunately missed it, but Splitgate 2 looks interesting. I played a lot of the first one, so I'm hoping, you know, the second one kind of builds on that a little bit more.
I watched a video like last night on that like playtest that just happened, and I watched some of the gameplay on it, and yeah, it looks cool. I never played the first one, but I definitely get the descriptors that everybody was saying. It's like Halo meets Portal. It's like that is what that looks like.
Yeah, no, I mean it's 100% what it is. I think from my understanding, they essentially the first game did really well, but they with the kind of support that they got from the first game, they were able to then get funding for the second game, which they kind of expanded upon. And so part of that was that they had to kind of move the first game to the side and, you know, deprioritize it. But you know, I think Splitgate 2 has kind of improved graphics as well as a better movement system from the way that the trailer shows. So as long as, you know, if it's just a first game but better, I'm not usually a fan of just, you know, throwing a 2 for the sake of throwing on a 2, but you know, I'm hoping it's good. Let's see. Warframe. First of all, it's not really impressions. I don't know what the hell's going on with Warframe. I don't know what. I was watching. It's like this is Warframe.
Sounds like the devs don't know either. Whenever she was,
it's fair. That's like, actually yeah.
We don't know that's like, either.
Yeah, 100%. No. Do you have any interest in going to Warframe? Have you ever thought about, like, you know, seeing what's over there?
I see gameplay and I see a service game that's been around for a decade, and it's like, you know, that's maybe not something that I need to spend my time in.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair.
I'm glad it exists for people that are into it and everything, but 76 steals my time for that slot.
I had a little bit of a phase where I played it for maybe like a week, but I was just like, this is it's like you're on the shallow end of a pool that you just know goes super deep, and you're like, I don't know if I want to go. I don't know if I want to go any further in.
Exactly.
Turok Origins. Is this the sequel everyone was expecting? I'm not sure, but it's a co-op shooter set in the Turok universe.
I remember thinking it was Arc 2 because I thought it was Vin Diesel in the trailer.
I also thought it was Arc, and I was like, I wonder like who they're like. I was like, they have to have some sort of celebrity reveal, like The Rock is also in the,
Mm-hmm.
and then Vin Diesel and The Rock in Arc are just get into a fight. It was the narrative was building itself in my head, and then I was like, oh, it's Turok. We'll see how that shakes out. Let's see. Oh, this trailer didn't actually convince me on the game, but I'm looking forward to Dying Light: The Beast. I think that one would be interesting. Fortnite's doing Fortnite. Okay. I think we've gone through the big ones. The one game that we have. Oh, quick! I'll get your quick thoughts. Are you a Game of Thrones person, Nick?
Nah.
Okay, me neither. And so I'm sure a lot of people were maybe interested in King's Road, but I was just like, it's not doing anything for me. I don't know if I'm compelled.
I saw the trailer and I was just kind of like on it, and then I was watching the Easy Allies podcast, and the one around the Game Awards, they usually have like some former members in town that come on the podcast, and Brandon Jones was there, and he was like, yeah, that's a mobile game, and they're like, what? It's like, are you serious?
What?
And he's like, yeah, I've had ads for that game, like, in my other mobile games that I've been playing. And they looked it up, and yeah, it's like gameplay? A mobile game. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think it was like, one of those like higher tier mobile games that had, gameplay or something. I don't actually know. I've not looked into that game at all, but apparently it's available on mobile. So,
wow. Okay, so that brings us to the final game that I want to talk about for the show. And it's also the final game of the show. Nick, let's talk about Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet, the brand new game and the brand new IP from Naughty Dog, who are, of course, not working on The Last of Us Part 3. What do you think? What'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, to put myself back in watching it live, I mean, based on how Jeff was talking about it, and you look at it for 10 seconds, you immediately clock it's Naughty Dog. They have a way with their character models and their animation, I think, that, you can just immediately tell. Yeah, very weird, I think, is my takeaway from the trailer. I'm very intrigued in it because I like, the space cowboy western kind of thing. This doesn't really lean too much into that, but it definitely has like the Cowboy Bebop kind of vibe.
Sure.
With like the kind of retro futurism element to like how the ship is decorated. I
don't know if you noticed the brand on the ship, but
Porsche.
Is a Porsche.
There's brands everywhere in this, which is like,
I picked up on that too.
That's one thing that's like, if it's narratively like important, or like if it like, if there's some sort of like consumerism angle to this like narrative or something that kind of like gets that, versus it just being like, oh, we have product placement in the game. Like, I don't know.
Every time you go to rest, you just start drinking a Monster Energy. Exactly.
Like people were so like weirded out by that in Death Stranding, and it's like, what's gonna happen here? But the other thing that stood out to me was like the like celebrity cameos in there. You have Kumail Nanjiani, and then also when it's panning in the like on the wall that has all the like newspaper clippings. I think his name's Tony Dalton, but he played Lalo Salamanca in Better Call Saul. He's like in there. So yeah, there's just like,
I had no idea.
That's not like again, it's kind of Naughty Dog. They
Used
had
to, sure.
what's his name, Jeffrey Wright in part 2 and stuff, so it's like they have like celebrity cameos. I'm neither here nor there on there, but like it's a thing that like your eye goes to, and it's just like, that's Kumail Nanjiani, that's not whoever this character is. Like,
yeah. The for me, I also knew, I was like, oh, is this Naughty Dog? Is that what's happening right now? It's one of I probably feel similarly about this to how maybe Nick, you might have felt when Starfield was announced, of like, oh, like this developer I've liked is now trying sci-fi, huh? Let's see how this goes. Um, at the very least, it's a new kind of setting and backdrop for their kind of storytelling. And so I'm really curious as to what it is, because like, I thought it would be more of like a sim, not a sim, but like I knew it would be an action game, but maybe I would have compared it to like a, let's say like, like a Star Wars Outlaws, right? Like a gameplay similar to that, obviously with Naughty Dog's polish. But then at the end, they have like a little tease, and I'm like, is this like a Souls-like? What the hell is this combat? Like, so again, it's CG, so you can't really take it for kind of 100% what you see, what you get. But part of Intergalactic, that teaser definitely felt like Naughty Dog being like, watch us cook, and so there's certain cinematic qualities that I just really appreciated, like the fact that as the camera's moving through the ship, as the main character is talking to the person on the intercom or whatever, the voice will fade in and out, like you'll hear the one that she's walking away from start like getting further away, and then the new one that she's walking in towards from fades in, and stuff like that I thought was really cool. And just that whole sequence of like getting ready, and I already know that like that jacket and that whole look, it's going to be like the cyberpunk thing we know, or like the Edge Runners thing with the yellow jacket will be like, oh yeah, it's the fucking intergalactic jacket. So yeah, Intergalactic. I'm very curious to see what it is. Again, it's one of those things you're looking at and you're like, yeah, this is a game that's going to come out in 2 years, man. Like, I don't think this game's coming out this year.
Yeah.
Or next year.
The thing that like I wanted to touch on is that I know Neil Druckmann has talked in interviews saying that like they've definitely looked at like From Software, and that Intergalactic is going to be a more open game, whatever that means for Naughty Dog. I'm not really sure, but I think they're definitely, I don't think it's going to be quite as linear as something like Last of Us or Uncharted historically has been. I do think, I mean, you get a shot where she has like a cool sci-fi pistol, and then she has the like laser sword at the end there,
which kind of like looks like music. But I don't know, that's the first thing I like when when it comes up close up of the camera, it almost looks like music notes, like, or like a volume bar, when like you're editing. That was the impression I got.
If it has, one way to easily get me in here is that if it's like, sci-fi retro future, and then it's like Hi-Fi Rush and it has like a music combat thing, like you'll have me. Also, two other just minor things that stood out to me. It's an easy and cheap trailer tactic, but I do love the part towards the end where it goes from the studio that brought you, and then they hit every single Naughty Dog thing. I love that. And then obviously the title. If it was just Intergalactic, I would have been like top marks. Like that's a great title, I think. Throwing in the Heretic Prophet, I don't think it rolls off the tongue the greatest, but it's undoubtedly a very Naughty Dog title. Like,
well, I was gonna say like that would be the difference between your title preference and my title. Like, because like for me, I hate one word titles. If you don't know, Nick loves one word titles, like punchy titles. I love titles that are a little bit more lengthy. It reflects in my own work as well. And so like I was like Intergalactic, and then like the Heretic Prophet comes in. I was like, oh, okay, I see what we're doing here.
It reminds me a lot of Jack and Daxter, or like Jack the Precursor Legacy.
Sure.
Like it's a very evocative title of like that kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to seeing more. There's only so much that we can glean from this trailer, but I'm definitely more excited about Intergalactic than, some of Naughty Dog's other games.
Yeah. Well, that brings us to the end of the show. I think the last thing I'll kind of quickly say about the Game Awards, because obviously we missed talking about it as it was happening, was that I think that Jeff did, like I said, he put on a good show, but I think he did the best version of that show that he could have in the current state of the game industry.
Sure.
With like 15,000 jobs last year being lost in the games industry, it's very hard to be like, hey, the future of games is positive. But I kind of briefly mentioned at the start, we could get into a whole full episode just talking about the current state of print media in games, the state of things. But with all that said, I think it was a nice night to where you can really just be like, okay, video games are awesome. I want to see some cool video games, and Snoop Dogg's in there for some reason as well. But it was cool, cool way to nerd out. So yeah, the Game Awards were awesome, and now we're officially caught up on the stuff that we missed. Nothing else happened significantly in the time that we were gone.
Yeah.
So I hope you guys enjoyed a meaty episode to start off our brand new rebooted season. If you did, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe, because there's going to be weekly episodes coming out, and we're actively going to take feedback to kind of see what we can change and improve and kind of develop. And I'm looking forward to kind of seeing where this podcast goes over the next few weeks and months. Nick, I gotta say, it's nice to get back into the groove of things. It feels like it both feels like it's been forever, and also like we haven't skipped a beat.
I feel the same way. I think we definitely hit the ground running here with this first one. So
yeah, an absolutely meaty episode. So there's. We're starting it slow, obviously, with just getting into the podcast, but we have other shows that we've done, like Retrograde, that we'll hopefully kind of bring back to some degree. We'll figure out how to do that when the time comes. But there's a lot more kind of gaming discussions to be had, and I hope you guys are excited for it. So, with all that said, as always, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and until next time, have a good night, a good morning, and a damn good time.
see ya.